Okay, I guess we can get started. No, thanks. I'd like to welcome you to the regular board meeting for the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors for this Tuesday, October 8th, 2013. And if you will now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Pine.
Here.
Supervisor Groom.
Present.
Supervisor Slocum. Supervisor Tissier. Here. President Horsley.
Present. Now time for public comment, and I have three people for public comment. Martin Fox, followed by Karen Kitterman, and then Robert Dendens.
Good morning, President Horsley, members of the board, my fellow veterans, Supervisor Slocum and Mr. Maltby, Mr. Holland and Mr. Byers. Thank you for your service to the county and pledging your allegiance to our republic, which guarantees liberty and justice for all, even those persons living with mental illness who do not believe they are sick and consequently do not and cannot advocate for services that would free them to be productive citizens. Assisted outpatient treatment, known as Laura's Law, produces measurable, successful results in 89% of the cases referred to the program, according to Nevada County's Laura's Law court judge who spoke in Oakland last Thursday, along with their behavioral health services director and program manager. The number of referrals is not limited, and an individual's eligibility for treatment includes experiencing early psychosis. San Mateo County's Prevention and Recovery in Early Psychosis, or PrEP program, limits an individual's eligibility for treatment to those who volunteer after experiencing one or two psychotic breaks. The health system's December 9th, 2011 memorandum recommending approval of the $1.2 million contract with the Family Services Agency of San Francisco says PrEP's performance goal was to maintain or reduce the level of care for 93% of its enrolled patients. A family member of an individual disenrolled from PrEP told you that PrEP wasn't working on February 12th this year. Now, the health systems has admitted that it screened out or disenrolled more than half of the people referred to PrEP, and that only 17 of PrEP's 35 enrolled patients remained in the program for more than 6 months. In its e-journal last week, a 75% failure rate in most programs would lead to a contract cancellation. However, as incredible as it may seem, PrEP is being called a success and expanded. San Mateo County needs effective, efficient, and economical programs like Laura's Law, not expensive failures that fail to meet performance goals like PrEP. Please adopt Laura's Law.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Karen Kitterman, followed by Robert Dendens.
Good morning. My name is Karen Kitterman. I'm an attorney, and I've lived close to the proposed Planned Parenthood site for 11 years. I volunteer with programs that help you develop good relationships based on respect. One of the programs is a conference in Menlo Park this weekend, where a key speaker will share her experience as a patient and an employee of Planned Parenthood. Before I share that, I want to remember why we're here today. It's not about the niceties of permits or leases. We're called to, in a democracy, to share the truth and to protect the most vulnerable, and few are more vulnerable than young minority women. They are, however, Planned Parenthood's target demographic. We likely have all heard of Planned Parenthood's documentations of violations of criminal child exploitation reporting laws. Planned Parenthood in Santa Clara and San Francisco, for example, we're in the press in recent years for this. In Santa Clara, Planned Parenthood failed to report a 39-year-old stepfather who repeatedly raped and then impregnated a 13-year-old girl whom he brought repeatedly to Planned Parenthood and ultimately had a late-term abortion. Planned Parenthood did not report the abuse as required by law, but profited from his crimes while the girl was repeatedly raped. This failure is common practice in Planned Parenthood nationwide and is well documented on liveaction.org. It's not only young incest and rape victims Planned Parenthood has exploited. Patricia Sandoval, the speaker at Saturday's conference, had multiple abortions at Planned Parenthood and was given poor quality contraceptions there that likely led to the repeat abortion business from her. She later worked for Planned Parenthood, where she was required to systematically lie to women to encourage them to have abortions. Her job, and please pardon the honesty here, but we need to know the truth about any business asking to serve our community, was to count the body parts to ensure each abortion was complete. The trauma she endured by having to view and
Kitterman,
count body parts.
Could you please summarize?
Yep, okay. The trauma she endured caused her to leave. She became a drug addict and is now well and helping women who are similarly traumatized. I just ask that we as a community that already has many reputable medical facilities not permit Planned Parenthood to do their business here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kitterman. And Robert Dedens?
Hi, good morning. My name is Robert Dedens. I work in Redwood City. I believe we should not allow Planned Parenthood to establish their business in our community. Its profit-centric goals conflict with the health objectives of building community. Their primary function is providing contraceptives to unmarried youth and abortions to women who are usually deeply scarred and sometimes permanently physically maimed. Women who have abortions are 9 times more likely to attempt suicide and nearly 4 times more likely to have substance abuse disorders. The majority of women who have had abortions meet the American Psychological Association criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder. Sexually active teenage boys are twice as likely to suffer from depression, and sexually active teenage girls are 3 times more likely to suffer from depression. Also, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Breast cancer was once known as the nun's disease, those who never had children, because having a child to full term protects you from breast cancer. Now, it is currently an epidemic. So having an abortion, there's much documented medical research on this, having an abortion before your first term pregnancy greatly increases your risk of breast cancer. So as a community that cares for the well-being of its members, we must not allow a business that profits from and encourages others' harm to take up residence among us. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. It's now time to set the agenda and approve the consent agenda items. Any items to remove?
Mr. President, I would like to, I don't really necessarily have to remove it. I would like just to make an adjustment to one of the consent items. And it's item, I believe it's item number 30.
30.
It's about the applying for the SB 1022. What I'd like to do, because this had to be turned around in such short order, and they put a cap of $18,051,800. I'd like to ask if we can just amend that to not to exceed 40,000, so the jail planning can continue to vet it.
40 million.
40 million, I'm sorry. I'm not used to those big numbers. 40 million, so, and that it would just, the county manager would just sign off on it after they, if they add anything more. But I think there's a couple things I noticed weren't in here, and that was that they weren't looking at rehabbing the kitchen there that could be probably upgraded for culinary perhaps. I'm not absolutely sure. Some escalation costs. I'd like to work with them and vet it a little bit more, but not to exceed 40 million. I don't think we'll come up with 40 million or more.
That's 40 million of state funds to seek
Right,
up to
exactly.
40 million of state funds.
Right.
And Mr. President, the members of the board, I just might add to that. My office continues to work with the sheriff's office on the final wording of the grant. The board hasn't seen it, but there's some more work that needs to be done. I'm sure we'll get it done in a timely way, but we are continuing to do that.
But do we need to have a motion, or is
I think just
come
with
back?
that, the amendment that Supervisor Tissier said to increase the cap to 40 million, and understanding that we're still massaging the words, we're fine. We don't need to bring it back.
Do I need a motion though to amend item 30?
You do.
Okay. So
Yeah, I'd like to move to amend item number 30.
I'll second.
I think
All in
Carol,
favor?
do you have a comment?
Aye.
Aye.
No, I need to abstain from item number 24, Mr. President.
Okay.
And if I would like to have 27 come off, I just like to ask a couple questions about it. Number 27, off the consent.
Okay.
And I would suggest we do, since it won't take very long, if we could do that
before we get to item 8, just so, after the ceremonial items.
In fact, I might move it before the presentations and awards,
That's
so.
fine, too.
Okay, do I have a motion to set the agenda to remove item 27?
I'll move to set the agenda and approve the consent items with the amended item number 30 and number 27 to the regular.
Oh, okay. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so let's take item number 27 first.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to just give this a little bit of a public discussion in that it's a substantial contract for 5 years with our ambulance provider. So I had a couple of questions, and maybe perhaps Louise Rogers might be able to help me out here. So, first off,
Good morning.
Thank you. We read in the paper about a lot of the issues facing Santa Clara County with their ambulance services. So I know, and you provided in the materials given to the board, that we've had excellent record with AMR. But if for any reason that service were to decline, how would we proceed, and what are our remedies if we ever, saw a substantial decline in service?
We monitor the contract monthly, and as you said, AMR has demonstrated outstanding performance in all the areas of the contract. The contract outlines provisions for remedies in the event that we start to see declines. Of course, there are penalties if their performance declines, which have not been at all an issue
Right.
in the 5 years, or the nearly 5 years of the agreement.
Okay. A second question is, we didn't put the contract out for, competitive, for RFP. Could you just address our thinking behind that?
Yes, it's quite standard in California for ambulance contracts to exceed 5 years. In fact, 10 years is quite the norm. The state guidance regarding the duration of ambulance contracts, which is not statute, but their general guidance on it is 10 years. Our contract, which as you know was 5 years from July 1, 2009 to next June 30th, 2014, and includes the option at your sole discretion to extend for 5 years, is more unusual. And of course, it gives us a lot of leverage. But 10 years is quite the norm, and that is because of the tremendous investment it takes to make a shift, the amount of resources to switch providers, and in our system where there are many partners involved, including local fire providers, making a shift would have a lot of far-reaching impacts. So 5 years would be relatively short in the state for an ambulance contract.
Okay, and then my final question pertains to the fiscal side. In our board memo, it notes that AMR will pay about $4.1 million to the San Mateo County Pre-Hospital Emergency Medical Group, and I'm trying to understand that a little bit better. My understanding is that that is to pay or to reimburse fire when they respond to a medical situation.
Yes, the structure of the agreement in San Mateo County is we have an agreement with AMR for their component of it. We also have an agreement with the San Mateo County Pre-Hospital Emergency Medical Services Group, which we sometimes refer to as the JPA, and that's comprised of 18 different local fire agencies who are involved in providing the first response to 911 calls that are triaged by Public Safety Communications. So the ambulance response in this county is comprised of both the fire response and the AMR response. AMR is charged with all of the billing related to the ambulance service. And they bill insurance companies and they bill patients. And the revenue that they receive, since the fire agencies are providing a part of the workforce for the response, they send out fire trucks that have the paramedic and sometimes several EMTs. AMR sends those funds back to the county, and we give them to the San Mateo County Pre-Hospital Emergency Medical Services Group, and it amounts to a little over $4 million a year that we send back to that JPA.
Okay, thank you for addressing my questions.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve 27A and B.
Second.
Before we actually take a vote, we actually have a number of speakers on this. One is Tony Slimick, and followed by Francine Seraphin Dixon.
Good morning. Thank you for having us today. Thank you for doing the job that you do. Most of you remember me as the president of the San Mateo County Firefighters, but now things have changed a little bit where the San Mateo County Firefighters now represent the transport medics here in the county. So a little bit of a different change, but still the same faces. We're here today because you're up for a review process here of the AMR's performance. And we're hoping and to have you postpone this until we can get to a point as being the new labor relations aspect of this union and this representative, that we have some time to work with the management and to secure a contract. My members are the people that make this happen. The performance of AMR is not just one aspect. It's not a person that sits behind a desk. It's people that actually ride the ambulances. It's the women and men of this county that protect all of us on a day-to-day basis, 24 hours a day. The issue in front of us right now is when you're reviewing the compliance, you're only seeing one side of the coin. There's two sides of this coin, and labor has not been heard from, and we aren't having a lot of success with AMR at this point at getting them to the bargaining table. So we'd hope that we could have some time to postpone this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slimick. Francine Seraphin Dixon, followed by Don Maynard.
Good morning, President Horsley, Supervisors Groom, Pine, Tissier, Slocum, Mr. Maltby, Mr. Holland, and Mr. Byers. I come and want to speak to you in two different roles. First, as the Executive Director of the Hospital Consortium of San Mateo County. The hospitals enjoy an excellent collaborative relationship with AMR. In addition, AMR works with the hospital consortium and the hospitals to provide community health education to improve the health of the population in San Mateo County. Secondly, as chair of the Emergency Medical Committee, which last week recommended an extension of the contract for 5 years with AMR based on the exceptional performance of the previous 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Maynard, followed by Brad White.
Good morning, Mr. Horsley, Board, Mr. Maltby, Mr. Holland, Mr. Beers. My name is Don Maynard. I'm the Fire and EMS Operations Manager at San Mateo County Communications. San Mateo County has a long history as a leader in advanced life support pre-hospital care. We were the first county in California to have an exclusive operating area or agreement in the entire state. We're early adopters of standing orders, which is medical intervention without physician oversight. We were one of the very first counties in the state to have a system status deployment, that is the dynamic movement of ambulances to ensure contractual response times. And we have a one-of-a-kind public-private partnership through the ALS JPA. In 1978, I might be dating myself here a little bit, but Medevac, if some of you remember them, the very first paramedic provider in San Mateo County,
threatened that, well, they were losing money, and they threatened to leave unless the county subsidized them to the tune of, I think it was in the neighborhood of $1 million. There's no reason for that to occur again here. The county has a partner with solid financials, outstanding members, outstanding employees, excellent working relationships that exist between the Public Safety Communications Center, the ALS JPA, the EMS agency, and AMR provide not only for the success and continuity of care during incidents like the Asiana crash or the 6-alarm fire in Redwood City, but also for the day-to-day events that go on. Business as usual, as we call them. So in conjunction with the San Mateo County Fire Chiefs Association, the Police Association, Public Safety Communications unequivocally endorses the 5-year extension of the contract.
Thanks,
you.
Don.
Okay.
Brad White, followed by Jeff Bolton.
Good morning, members of the board, county leadership. My name is Brad White. I'm the general manager for American Medical Response in San Mateo County. It's an honor to be here this morning asking for your support of the recommendation of the health system to extend the ambulance contract with American Medical Response. I want to take just a few moments to talk about the San Mateo County EMS system and the partnership that exists today, which stands ready 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our system is not just AMR. It starts with system design by the EMS agency for San Mateo County, the 911 call taking and dispatch by Public Safety Communications, our fire department, first responder paramedics, our AMR paramedics and EMTs, our law enforcement partners, and our hospital teams. This partnership serves our communities from providing simple human comfort to a small child all the way to the extreme of the Asiana Airlines crash that we just experienced. It is this public-private partnership of agencies that supports the AMR team standing here today, fully compliant with our contractual commitments and exceeding our requirements of ambulance response time, customer service, community outreach, clinical innovation, and disaster response. I'll close my comments by sharing 2 of hundreds of customer survey comments that we receive. That is, again, a reflection not just of AMR, but of that whole EMS system team. First being the service was incredibly fast, the team was kind, efficient, and overall I was very impressed with the quality of service. And the second, thank you, I'm very grateful, God bless you, and I'm happy to be alive. Thank you, members of the board, county leadership, for the honor of serving and the opportunity to continue to serve San Mateo County.
Thanks, Brad. Next is Jeff Bolton. You're either here as a battalion chief of Redwood City or the chief of Colma. Which is
it's
it?
too bad to be known that well. Mr. President, members of the board, it's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm actually here representing the San Mateo County Fire Chiefs. I'm vice president there. And it's actually, I realized when Don was speaking, I was actually here when Medevac was here too, and
so was
had
I.
a whole nother throwback thought on that. So the fire chiefs have written a letter of support that we wrote, and I think you've all seen it. And I'm here to once again represent that the fire chiefs of San Mateo County do support the extension of the contract with AMR. They have been an appropriate and responsive cooperator for us as we move through the emergencies that we've gone through. And you know that I think there's other parts of the county for years thought nothing happens in San Mateo County. Well, my friends in Los Angeles County now pay attention to what's going on here. And it's through our cooperative relationship that we have successfully done those. So we'd like to support that and ask the board to consider that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. One more speaker, Susan Manheimer, the Chief of Police of San Mateo and the President of the San Mateo County Police Chief and Sheriff's Association.
Thank you so much,
Got all your
President,
titles down.
President, members of the board, and esteemed manager and colleagues and attorney and counsel. I just wanted to briefly reaffirm that the San Mateo County Police Chiefs and Sheriff's Association also has sent a letter of endorsement for AMR. The partnership that we've had is nothing short of excellent. It has really, really benefited this county as well as our first-line law enforcement, in putting together some very innovative programs, too numerous to mention, but I just wanted to highlight the SMART program, the ability and the willingness of the medics and those in the field to deal with hard and tough issues in partnership with us, to provide SWAT tactical medics for us. The partnership is wonderful. We look forward to continuing it, and we want to really commend them on the levels of excellence and service and dedication they have. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, we had a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes. Okay, now we're for presentation on awards. The first presentation is of a resolution honoring the Child Care Coordinating Council for 40 years of service to the children of San Mateo County. So first, I would like to make a motion to approve that resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this is the Child Care Coordinating Council. We're recognizing it for over 40 years of service to families and children. Their mission is to create quality child care and preschool opportunities, and their programs are such things as the Parents Resource Center, a family-to-family program to train providers in child care and development, a Spanish-speaking child care initiative which increases the number of Spanish-speaking providers for San Mateo County families, a CalWorks toll-free line for CalWorks participant to receive resources and referral information, and finally, an initiative to enroll children in the kids' health insurance. So Lori Wissart is here from used to be from Family Services, and she is also a member of the board, so she's going to receive that proclamation, and I will bring it up to you.
Well, I couldn't have described 4Cs better than what we've done than you have. So thank you so much. And I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for this on behalf of 4C staff and board. 4Cs has changed throughout the 40 years that we have been around. But the core piece of what our organization does is still our goal is to care for each individual child in San Mateo County, to see that they have a nurturing, safe place to stay while they grow and learn and while their parents work. And we continue to do that with over 13,000 families a year. This is an exciting year for us for a number of reasons. We're combining our 40th We're celebrating our 40th year, and we're also celebrating our leadership awards. And we're going to have an award ceremony and an event this Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. at Curiosity at Coyote Point. And you're all very welcome to come, and we have invitations outside, and we hope you would come. There are some very special honorees at our event this year. The first honoree is receiving the Mary Griffin Children's Award, and I'm old enough to remember Mary very, very well. And this is Angela Miller, who is a director of Martin Luther King Center in San Mateo, in the city of San Mateo, and she has, for her dedicated and tireless work to providing a place for teens to go after school. And secondly, our community award is given to the Sobrato Family Foundation. The Sobrato Foundation has invested in our community for so many years, but they've done some fairly special things this year. And one of them is to bring the Sobrato Center for Nonprofits to San Mateo County in Redwood Shores. And that's 4C's new home, as well as many other nonprofits and great meeting space. And the other thing that Sobrato Family Foundation is being honored for is for their SEAL program, which is an initiative to to help children preschool through third grade who are English learners. The Legacy Award goes to a longtime favorite who is certainly deserving, Jackie Spear, for her many, many achievements throughout the years, but most recently for her launching of the Big Lift last May. And our Visionary Award, the Mary Patchy Visionary Award, and some of you will remember Mary. She was the executive director of Four Cs for 22 years. This year, we're going to award it to an organization, and that is the Peninsula Partnership Leadership for Children, the PPLC, and the board. Many people and many of those in government and are a part of this leadership group. It is really a collaboration of hundreds of people that are this year bringing forth, providing opportunities and helping with the initiative to raise from 58 to 80% the number of children in this community that are reading by third grade, reading at grade level by third grade. It's a time. We're moving the needle a little bit in this county, and I think we ought to celebrate that. And please come to our event this Thursday and celebrate with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. You might also consider adding Supervisor Groom to that Big Lift, because she was really the initiative, well, it was part of her initiative, and I want to congratulate you. That was a great program that you've come up with. So
Supervisor Groom is part of the PPLC.
Oh, good.
And I also want to congratulate again the Board of Supervisors for the $10 million in matching funds over 2 years to really help with this initiative. And
Supervisor Groom twisted all of our arms for that.
but we all love Supervisor Groom.
Did a great job. Thank you very much, Lori. Next is a presentation of the Children's Collaborative Action Team Annual Update Report. Supervisor Dave Pine.
Yes, the Children Collaborative Action Team is set up by state law, and its purpose is to coordinate the county's efforts to prevent and respond to child abuse. And so Renee Zimmerman, who heads up the leadership team, will give us an update on the work of the collaborative. And I'm sorry, and so I'll turn over to you, Renee.
Absolutely, thank you. And I'm just going to quickly hand. Yeah, I think I left some of them down. I'll get them to the rest of you guys. I have a written report. Good morning, board.
Good morning.
President Horsley and members of staff. We're very glad to be here. It's been a little while since we've done a formal presentation to the board, and this report will give us an opportunity to catch you up on our activities through the end of June. One of the unique things about Children's Collaborative Action Team, or CCAT, is that we are designated by the board, but we serve kind of a unique role in that we are the primary mechanism for the county to be able to draw down child abuse prevention funding from the state. And it's a very important source of funding. It's not extremely large in the big scheme of things. It hovers around $750,000 a year, depending on the year, but it's a very important source of funding, and it's unique in that it's solely for prevention purposes. Another unique thing about our team is that we have a wide representation. The State Office of Child Abuse Prevention really looks to these individual child abuse prevention councils to provide well-rounded representation, and we have good county agency, good community organization, good community member, and good parent participation. We are led by a great dedicated team. We call it the Oversight Committee, and I want to thank Supervisor Pine for providing leadership and a liaison to the board on our team. And this team kind of ensures the goals and directions and how the funding is going to be focused out in the county. So unfortunately, this slide hasn't changed since our last presentation. There is still 5 children too many dying every day from child abuse, and although this number has not gone up, it's still too many, and it's a significant reason why we want to continue to work in the county on prevention efforts. Hillary?
Morning. So
Children who experience abuse and neglect are at a much higher risk of having many negative side effects. And you can see here, socially, they're more likely to have anxiety problems, be extremely withdrawn, or sometimes even aggressive. They're more likely to have mental health issues that would require counseling or therapy. It's also more likely that they'll continue the cycle of violence and they themselves will eventually get into abusive relationships or possibly become abusers. They often will use substances as a coping mechanism. They're more likely to suffer from chronic illness and also more likely to become teen parents. And they also have a very difficult time in school, and it's very frequent that they will require special assistance or also need IEPs. So you can see these negative effects affect many systems such as medical and mental health, law enforcement, judicial, public social services, nonprofit agencies, and more. And the annual cost to society is estimated at $103 billion annually. And you can see that the slide says 1.3, but the actual number is $103 billion.
So a typo in not the right direction. It's a staggering amount. I'm not going to go into great detail, but I just wanted, for the sake of review, last winter, Dr. Lock Wynn, who's the Director of Children and Family Services, gave a presentation to the board stemming from a kind of a recent increase in referrals. So a steady increase since 2010. And I think we were all wondering kind of why. And even though we still have the 5th lowest referrals in the state, and we've consistently had a small number of referrals compared to other counties, it has been steadily rising. And he explained very eloquently, and I think it was very informative, this unique self-sufficiency gap that catches a lot of families in our county. They make a little bit too much money to be able to qualify for aid, and yet they do not make enough money to be able to keep a roof over their head. Unbelievably, it costs a family of 3 in our county $30,000 more in annual income in order to be able to live here than in the rest of the state. So let alone the fact that many families that's their entire income, it just is extremely expensive to live here. And so they have difficulties, and there's more caseloads. And in recent years, there was, due to some budget tightness, fewer staff to manage the caseloads. Families struggling equal the reasons for removal of a child remaining so high around the areas of general neglect and caretaker absence or inability, incapacity to take care of them. So that's where we're targeting a lot of our efforts and a lot of our funding.
So CCAT focuses on prevention and early intervention because that is key. And some of the effective strategies include parent education programs that offer parenting support and child and youth development information, family support programs that strengthen families and promote the well-being of all members, mentoring programs to offer positive role models and an outside form of support for youth, family violence prevention programs, advocacy to create a unified voice and influence public policy, mandated reporter training so that school officials, child care workers, doctors, many others, and professionals can recognize the signs and know how to report. Community awareness to build a strong community that protects healthy families. Collaboration and coordination so that our community and programs can work together to offer the best services possible. And targeting high needs community. For example, CCAT really supports programs in the 94063 zip code, which is Redwood City, and 94021, which is Pescadero, La Honda area, because that's where the highest number of maltreatment rates are.
So we do have programs throughout the county, but we just wanted to show you that there are areas of even greater need, and so we make sure that we're well covered in those areas. CCAT strives to provide a well-coordinated system of care through San Mateo County, as she just said, and we focused on programs and services that address the 5 research-based protective factors. These factors are nurturing and attachment, knowledge of parenting and child and youth development, parental resilience, social connections, and concrete support for parents. And these factors are all linked to lower instances of child abuse and neglect. Right, and here you see the programs and services for the 2012-2013 grantees.
I'm going to get into detail and give you examples of what these organizations are doing. The Cabrillo Unified School District provided counseling services to 4 coastside schools, in which 47% of the students are from migrant families. At Our Second Home, the Daly City Partnership provided a full range of services, including mental health and counseling services, food bank distribution, information and referral, parenting workshops, parent yoga classes, and ESL classes, and more. Family Connections provided free preschool and parent education classes to 128 families. These classes emphasize parent leadership, self-care, conflict resolution, and father involvement. Friends for Youth focused on providing mentees with activities, healthy relationships, healthy messages, and anti-bullying support. The Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center, their Strengthening Families initiative, had 2,316 parents participating in various leadership activities. Also, 250 educational workshops were offered, reaching nearly 3,000 participants. Puente de la Costa Sur serves families in our county's most isolated region of Pescadero and La Honda. Through their behavioral health and recovery services, families receive mental health counseling, parent education, assistance with work permits, food, clothing, and shelter. They also provide mandated reporter training for local professionals. The Redwood City Community Schools serve 4,057 students through a system of coordinated service delivery, comprehensive FRCs, family engagement activities, extended day learning, referrals, case managed care, and counseling. I myself am the Children Activities Coordinator at CORA, which is Community Overcoming Relationship Abuse. And I can tell you, because of the CCAT funding, we really are able to provide wraparound services where we can serve the family as a whole and not just a single primary victim that contacts us. So because of CCAT, we're able to offer building emotional understanding courses. They're parenting courses in English and in Spanish. This course helps to rebuild the bond between the parent and the child and helps to build a better understanding of a child's development, needs, and emotions. We also offer safety planning activities for all children who enter our housing that are over the age of 4. We offer school readiness assessments, and we have the staff in place to work with children who need assistance, and we also have the community connections and collaborations to be able to refer them to other agencies that can help as well. We also do social and emotional assessments and have mental health services available for our families. And lastly, we've been able to offer animal therapy, family activity nights, and family field trips. These activities help to rebuild the family bonds and also serve as moments of self-care during their time of crisis. And without CCAT's funding, we definitely would not be able to offer this wide array of services for the families.
And I'd like to say we're very proud of our relationship. In many parts of the state, the DV community and the child abuse prevention community are almost at odds, and they see themselves as competing for funds. And we work really well together, and we have a lot of cross participation. So that's why I thought it was it's neat, and it's kind of a neat day to be able to come here together because we have a special celebration later as part of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Okay, just to round out and to finish our presentation this morning, a smaller source of actual funds, but equally and almost even more important in a lot of ways is the work that we do in the larger community. We don't provide the funds for the mandated reporter training. That is provided directly by the Human Services Agency through a separate contract, but we are the mechanism by which the mandated reporter trainings are promoted out in the county. We provide all of the booklets that the trainer takes and gives to the almost 1,300 individuals that have been trained. And we work really hard to get the message out to everybody that is a mandated reporter about the law and about the requirement to report suspected child abuse. And that's a focus that we're going to continue to support and hopefully increase. We participate every month during April. That's National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and that's an opportunity to get awareness out to the broader community through our Blue Ribbon campaign. And I'm really excited to share with you, just as a way of closing, a campaign that we have started this year as part of a Bay Area effort. It's called the Enough Abuse Campaign. This is probably the first time, at least I've been here 10 years, that we've put a specific focus around child sexual abuse prevention. This is a campaign that was started back in Massachusetts as a result of the clergy crisis, and it was actually funded by a very large grant from the CDC to bring it to multiple states. So the 10 Bay Area counties through a grant have been able to launch this campaign. And it's not only a coordinated kind of Bay Area wide effort, it's the first campaign that's going to allow us to do trainings to parents, to school groups, to individuals that aren't mandated reporters, but who call us all the time and ask for more information about things such as how can I protect my child from a sexual predator, or how do I know someone may be doing something, you know, inappropriate with my child. And there really isn't a specific training that really puts the responsibility on all of us adults. It gets away from the traditional trainings that focus on children and tell them about good touch, bad touch. So this is very comprehensive and important. And just to end with a picture, 2 weeks ago, we went to a trainer of trainers, and this is your county team. You might recognize some of the folks. We are all certified to give this training, and the idea is to kind of train in pairs. So you see Jane Smithson, who also serves as our mandated reporter trainer for the county, myself. We have a fantastic team over on the coast side. That's Iris and Jorge, who both work for Puente, and they'll be covering the coast and bilingual Spanish, which is great. And then Janelle Thompson is our backup support. She is our county liaison at Human Services Agency and is also a trainer. So we're going to roll this out, and we'd love to come back to you, the board, in January with an official kind of rollout of this campaign and give you a lot more information about it. I do have little bookmarks so that you can go to the website and see what we're doing. You click on the state of California and you'll see everything that's going on. So
Thanks, Renee. Thanks very much.
great.
Thank you. Any questions on the board? Okay,
Any
thank
questions?
you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Next is a presentation of a proclamation designating October 2013 as Arts and Humanities Month. Supervisor Warren Slocum.
Thank you, Mr. President. You'll notice on the agenda that I have a few items. There are four or so.
I did notice that.
So the first one is to ask you to proclaim October 2013 as Arts and Humanities Month.
Is that a motion?
Not yet. Thank you. National Arts and Humanities Month is a coast-to-coast collaborative that recognizes the importance of culture in America. It's designed to encourage all Americans and all of us in San Mateo County to explore new facets of the arts and humanities in our lives and begin a lifelong habit of active participation in the arts and the humanities. And I would like to make a motion, if you will, to proclaim October 2013 as Arts and Humanities Month in San Mateo County.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You're finished.
You don't, I'm finished, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thought maybe,
I kept
okay.
waiting for you to
I
go
was
to the
waiting
next
for
item.
you to say
All right,
something else.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor Slocum. The next one is a presentation and a resolution appointing Carol Goodwin to the honorary post of San Mateo County Poet Laureate for a 2-year term from January 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2015. And this is Supervisors Warren Slocum and Carol Groom.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, the work of the Poet Laureate Committee in San Mateo County began way back in April. We had a pretty large committee of poets, librarians, literary critics, art and community commissioners, professors of English, and of course Supervisor Groom and myself. In total, we had 7 committee meetings. And during the 6-week nomination period, we had some 15 nominations, submissions for Poet Laureate, which I have to say is probably more than I expected and maybe more than the committee expected. So it was a huge turnout. We went through a process to narrow the 15 nominations down to 5 finalists. And we actually invited them in to answer some questions and to do a poetry reading, which was really fun. I'd just like to mention the 5 finalists and thank them, and in fact all the folks who participated in the process. You know, if you're an artist, it's not always easy to put your art out there in public and have people, you know, not necessarily, some may like it, some may criticize it, but it's really sort of a tough thing.
Kind of like running for office?
Kind of like running for office. Probably tougher. But the 5 finalists were Terry Adams, Kevin Arnold, Casey Fitzsimmons, Eileen Malone, and of course, Carolyn Goodwin. So thank everybody for all of the materials that they submitted, and especially the 5 for coming and reading poetry to us. And it was a difficult decision because everybody was really top-notch and did a really good job. And so thanks to them again. Also, thank you to the Poet Laureate Committee, many of whom are here today. And if you could just stand and be recognized. And also a big thank you to Supervisor Carol Groom, who took a lot of her time, and her schedule is very busy, as we all know, in being a part of this. And also a special thank you to Marcy Dragon, who I think kept us all organized, created these huge binders, and always kept us on track and focused. And also the other person that worked with us as the staff was Judah Tomilsoff of Supervisor Groom's staff, and we should, I don't know if she's here, but thank you, Judah. So let me at this point stop, make a motion, if I could, to appoint Carolyn Goodwin as San Mateo County's first Poet Laureate.
Would you like to second it, Supervisor Groom?
I will second that.
And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So let me just share a little bit before I ask Carolyn and maybe committee members to come up and share some of their thoughts. But Carolyn is a resident, Mr. President, of the coast. She lives in Montero.
Good choice.
Give her 5 minutes, Don. Give her 5 minutes.
She can have as much time as she wants.
You can be in the picture later. She was born and raised in Alaska, of all places. Moved to San Mateo County in 1999 to attend Stanford University as a Wallace Stegner Fellow in Poetry. She's currently a professor at the California College of Arts in the Master of Fine Arts Writing and Undergraduate Writing and Literature programs. She teaches workshops through the Stanford Writer Studio. Now get this, she has a BA in biology from Colorado College, an MFA in creative writing from the University of British Columbia. Obviously, she's an avid poet with publications going back to 1990, and recently she published her first collection of poetry. The book is called Trapline, and it's probably available at Amazon.com should you be interested. I personally called each of the 5 finalists, the 4 who didn't make it. They were very appreciative, and some of them actually volunteered to continue working with the committee as we go forward. And when I talked to Caroline to say that she had been selected, I asked her if she could be at this meeting today, and her, just without missing a beat and just kind of squealing, she said, "with bells on." And so I'd now like to ask Carolyn Goodwin to come up and get her picture taken. And Mr. President, you're certainly, and Supervisor Groom, you're certainly.
I never missed the opportunity.
Certainly willing to join us.
Good morning, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really honored, and hello. This is really special for me. A lot of times we write and we wonder if it ever goes anywhere, if it lands on readers, and so this just feels wonderful. I wrote a little piece that I'll read, a little statement. First of all, I would like to thank the advisory committee for the time they dedicated to making their decision. I know that these projects are very time consuming, and I want you to know that I am very honored and very, very grateful for this opportunity to serve my community. I also want to thank the other poets who are being considered for the position of Poet Laureate. I know that San Mateo County is full of poets, poetry, and poetry lovers, and I look forward to meeting you soon. My goal is to work together in a way that is inclusive, empowering, and celebratory. We have so much diversity and opportunity here in San Mateo County, and as your Poet Laureate, I will work to create projects that highlight the many voices, histories, and cultures of this very special place. This fall, the new president of the Poetry Foundation, which is based in Chicago, his name is Robert Polito, presented a suite of educational materials on the Poetry Foundation website. Polito writes, "I'd like to move away from the vision or notion of poetry as enrichment. The reality is that an individual who can appreciate poetry possesses a set of vital skills. These skills are required of an informed citizenry, one that is able to form educated opinions about important issues and discuss and debate those issues." I couldn't agree more. But also, poetry should be fun and exciting and accessible and available to everyone as one of our oldest art forms that we have as human beings. So on that note, I'd like to thank you again for this great honor. I'm really, really thrilled. My little daughter has a bracelet with bells that I forgot. I was so excited this morning, and I got here nice and early. So, but next time maybe I'll bring it. And you should have a copy of my poem. This poem is called Invitation, and just a quick note, I love the word quahog, but I was told later that it's actually pronounced quahog. So, and I know we don't have them on the West Coast, but still, I couldn't help myself. And this poem is called Invitation, and I hope you enjoy. It's the first in my collection. Invitation. Come to the end of the wharf when the last of the tide releases the harbor with its trollers and rigging, its lamp shells and speckled anemone. Come after work when the mind has grown plumes, delicate as tube worms in the driftwood, in the sponge and scarlet blood star, tough as tongues, as the sea whip clicking. Here is the hornmouth and wentletrap and chiton and quahog and cockle and wrinkle of the human knuckle, that rim inside the human eye. Here a thin film, an eyelid, an iris surrendering its pupil. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thanks. Next is a presentation of a proclamation designating October 2013 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Supervisor Warren Slocum.
Thank you, Mr. President. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and Mr. President, I should thank you for, when I took office in January, you appointed me to the Domestic Violence Council, and since serving on that committee, I have learned an awfully lot about domestic violence and how it just hurts so many in San Mateo County. Domestic violence is the leading cause of injury, as you know, to women between the ages of 15 and 44. Almost 1/3 of women experience physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Here in our county, some 9,000 that's 9,000 residents, received assistance calls through CORA's 24-hour hotline or law enforcement referrals. 305 adult San Mateo County residents were provided emergency shelter and transitional housing to escape their abusers. And finally, over 500 adults and their children received therapy to help them with their domestic violence-related traumas in San Mateo County. So, Mr. President, members of the board, I would ask that you approve a resolution establishing October 2013 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And just a quick reminder that I think at the conclusion of the board meeting on or around 12:30, we're going to have a Day of Remembrance celebration in the lobby here, and obviously the audience is invited to come, and you are all invited to come. So perhaps I could ask Melissa Lutkin to come up and accept this resolution and perhaps say a few words. You want to be in this picture, Mr. President?
No, I'll pass on this one.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Slocum, members of the board, Mr. Holland, Mr. Maltby, Mr. Beers. I'm very honored to accept this proclamation on behalf of Domestic Violence Awareness Month that's being celebrated around the country, as it is every year in October, and on behalf of the dedicated professionals who work to create a more civil and just society here in San Mateo County. It takes a community to interrupt the intergenerational cycle of violence with effective crisis intervention and supportive programs, and it takes developing awareness through publicly sponsored events like this to prevent it from happening in the first place. We've come a long way. This year, though nearly held hostage by bipartisan Pickering, the Violence Against Women Act was reauthorized and expanded protection for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and tribal survivors of domestic violence. In addition, several significant bills were signed into law, including one that reduces a barrier to leaving a domestic violence relationship. Now a survivor who's needing to terminate a lease to seek safety can present proof of abuse from a domestic violence counselor or a health practitioner rather than strictly from a temporary restraining order from a police report issued within the last 6 months. And another bill that's awaiting approval on the governor's desk is one that would protect survivors from termination or discrimination in the workplace and require employers to provide reasonable safety accommodations if they are being stalked. And here in San Mateo County, I know that you know that there are many, many examples of successful efforts on this front. There are an array of supportive services, and even if the available service support still falls woefully shy of the demand, we have incredibly committed members of advocates, attorneys, therapists, doctors, and law enforcement personnel who understand the highly complex nature of domestic violence and the challenges that victims face navigating the criminal justice system. Officers like Officer Vega from Brisbane and Sheriff's Deputy Stephen O'Malley, who were recognized by CORA as Officers of the Quarter for enhancing victim safety earlier this year by going above and beyond and making sure that the survivor connected with CORA and stayed in touch with us and with our counselors after the event occurred. And we have Deputy District Attorney Tricia Pova, who has on multiple occasions built a case and convinced the jury to convict a domestic violence defendant even when the victim was too scared to testify against him. Furthermore, after receiving specialized training sponsored by the Domestic Violence Council, some police departments have changed their dispatch protocols to get the information they need from survivors who call them and to provide better support as a result. And we're seeing teens who actually understand the dangers of teen dating violence and want to be part of the solution. I think the day might come soon when teenagers say in their own vernacular, of course, like, wow, man, respecting your partner and expecting him or her to respect your back is like, duh. But seriously, events like this bring us one step closer to the idea that here at home,
Terror at home among any population, straight or gay, rich or poor, black, brown, or white, will seem downright bizarre, as inconceivable as a woman not having the right to vote or a human being owning another human being. The day will come when the idea that someone could intentionally demean, humiliate, or physically injure another and claim to love them, especially in front of children, that such behavior between intimate partners was ever a private matter, that it took so much of our precious resources to provide safety for survivors of intimate partner abuse and hold batterers accountable, will seem like a dream. When all this will become a dark chapter in our history books. But until then, and on behalf of the thousands upon thousands of brave residents of the county and their children who will turn to us for help this year, thank you, and thank you for honoring Domestic Violence Awareness Month this year and each year. Thank you.
And thank you, Melissa, for the work that Cora does. It's really important, and it's you're really doing a fabulous job. I have one speaker, and it's Martin Fox.
Good morning again, President Horsley, members of the board, my fellow veterans, Mr. Holland, Mr. Byers. Thank you for your service to the county. The proclamation states San Mateo County is committed to eliminating all forms of family violence and abuse. And the Domestic Violence Council's mission is to reduce and prevent domestic violence as well as enhance victim services. Mothers of persons living with mental illness experience domestic violence too. Mentally ill people who do not understand their need to seek treatment voluntarily because they are so ill they will not advocate for themselves, do not participate in the community because they are homebound, usually under the care of parents. Homeless, dead or imprisoned like John Jacob Berger, who stabbed his mother repeatedly in San Mateo on Monday, August 12th. The Domestic Violence Council can help to eliminate all forms of family violence and abuse, enhance the services to victims like John Jacob Berger's mother, and make a difference in the lives of persons living with mental illness who are so sick they cannot and do not advocate for services themselves, by recommending the Board of Supervisors implement Laura's Law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. The next presentation is a presentation of a resolution honoring Linda Burton as the 2013 Barbara Hammerman Award recipient, and again, Supervisor Warren Slocum.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let me just make a motion to approve the resolution honoring Linda Burton as the 2013 Barbara Hammerman Award recipient.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye.
Yes. Aye. As you all know, the Hammerman Award is an annual award that was inspired by the late Lieutenant Barbara Hammerman, who I understand was a police officer in the city of San Mateo for some 21 years, rising to the rank of lieutenant, I believe. And this award was originally established to recognize the work of an exceptional law enforcement officer in San Mateo County who excels in service to domestic violence survivors and their children. The award now also recognizes other non-sworn members of the criminal justice system and victim advocacy community who serve domestic violence clients. Just as a special moment, I would like to also recognize here this morning the late Barbara Hammerman's partner, who I think is here, Frances Grunder.
Right over
Is
here.
she here?
Right over here, Warren.
Let me also thank this year's Hammerman Award judges, presiding Judge Robert Foyles, Sheriff Greg Monks, San Mateo Police Chief Susan Mannheimer, and Brenda Adams, the acting director of the Bay Area Legal Aid Society. And it's my pleasure to recognize Linda Burton as the recipient of this year's Hammerman Award. Just a little background, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder of the speakers that might want to talk, but she's a senior attorney with the Legal Aid Society of San Mateo County and is one of the longest standing advocates for survivors of domestic violence in San Mateo County. Linda has been with the Legal Aid Society for some 28 years and is fluent in Spanish as she represents many, many low-income clients, many monolingual, from initial intake through trial in cases of family law and domestic violence. Linda was recognized by the Board of Supervisors and having been inducted into the county's Women Hall of Fame in 1997, and she was instrumental in forming the first restraining order clinic in the early 1990s here in San Mateo County. Let me just stop there and congratulate Linda and ask her to come up and receive this resolution and, of course, this check that I have.
Right.
Well, this is tremendous. I knew Barbara Hammerman for many years. I feel like we grew up in the DV community here in San Mateo County. I respected her and was inspired by her and her work, but in most of all, I was inspired by the way she confronted her death. I'd like to thank the Board of Supervisors for establishing this award in Barbara's name, but even more importantly, for your ongoing support for domestic violence survivors in this county, and for we in the agencies, both nonprofit and governmental, who serve these survivors. Supervisor Slocum is our current liaison to the Domestic Violence Council. Don Horsley has been a supporter for years, both as a co-chair of the Domestic Violence Council and as sheriff. I would add my favorite story of Don was many years ago when he was sheriff and we were all just 12 years old starting out in this area. And our survivors were having trouble getting the restraining orders served on the batterers, and we couldn't figure out an efficient way of doing it, and someone had the idea, and it might have been Barbara, well, why don't we ask the sheriff? The individual police departments couldn't really do it. It was too logistically difficult. So we sat around and go, well, who's going to do it? You know, I think we were all a little afraid because Don was a big guy, and he was the sheriff, and he carried a gun. And
mean.
Yeah. So, again, it could have been Barbara. I don't remember who actually made the ask, but apparently what we heard was Don said, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Of course, we'll do it. And then in about, I think it was probably 3 or 4 years later, the rest of the state caught up with Don, and all sheriff's departments were required to do it. So that's the kind of support and both financial and other support we've gotten from members of the Board of Supervisors that has made all of our work in this area be very productive. And we have made wonderful strides, and it's just terrific to be a part of it. Thank you again.
Thank you, Linda.
Mr. President, could we just ask Chief Mannheimer to come up and say a few words if we could?
As she's coming up, I obviously worked with Linda for a long time and on the Domestic Violence Council and other venues as well, and you really were a great advocate. But I just want to say something about Barbara. She really was a pioneer in law enforcement. She did everything. I remember she was a motorcycle officer. She rose through the ranks. I actually tried to recruit her and almost had her.
Yes, but I promoted her, so it was okay.
And you did. Unfortunately, you did that because otherwise I would have had her in the sheriff's department. But she was a relentless advocate for victims of domestic violence, and it's really fitting that this award be named after her, and it's really fitting that Linda is the recipient this year.
Well, thank you, and thank you for allowing us as well through the DV Council for the San Mateo County Police Chiefs and Sheriffs Association to be such an active part of this. I was reflecting and looking at your agenda, how holistically you address violence, need, and services in this county. You had the Child Care Coordinating Council talking about children exposed to violence. You had the DV Council up here, and now you have something that's really relevant to practitioners. And that whole throughput, we wanted to expand this award to recognize how important the DA's office is, how important the advocates are. We know that we've got to really intervene in each cycle, and you all leading from the bench clearly understand that. So thank you very much for all you are doing. I think you're right, though, President Horsley, if I can say one thing about Barb Hammerman and a lesson to all of us is, you know, she was not only relentless, but she was fearless and unflinching in about the job that we're doing. And she was not afraid. I remember sending her to one of my meetings in Sacramento where I was on the Blue Ribbon Task Force to look at why we were having so many fatalities with already known victims of domestic violence. And Barb went to this meeting, and I don't know what she did, but she threw a little atomic bomb there. She basically asked about 37 scathingly piercing questions, and they asked if she could come back every month. And that is the report that we ended up with. And some of the changes about taking away guns now, about making sure that children exposed to violence, which we know are about 87% more likely to become victims or suspects in violence themselves. She really did that. And I want to remember that sometimes we have to push some, and sometimes we have to be relentless to make sure that we keep on doing what we're doing. I'm so proud to be a part of this county. I'm so proud that Barb Hammerman chose this county. She was actually, I don't want to say kicked out, she self-selected out after being the first openly gay officer in Arizona at a department that was not welcoming. And this county welcomed her in, and every step of the way stood up to the challenges and made sure we were better on behalf of it. So thank you all for continuing to keep Barb Hammerman's name alive, and for all of us who work so closely together to make sure for our county that we are asking those relentless and unflinching questions and then finding the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Melissa, did you want to come forward?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a few more things to that lengthy list of accolades already stated. I know that as someone who also knew Lieutenant Hammerman, that her drive, her passion for justice was in fact unflinching. She would leave no stone unturned. So it seems particularly fitting, given the extraordinarily high bar she established for everyone here, whether you knew her or not, that this award should go to Linda Burton. You know, I actually, when I think about Linda, she's similarly someone with whom, when it comes to advocating for those folks who don't have adequate representation, you really don't want to get in her way. Yeah. Linda was nominated by a member of the Domestic Violence Council, and I just want to add that we were just I was so pleased to hear when she was going to be the recipient of this award, because she not only represents survivors with passion and skill, but she attends to all things policy related locally and statewide. She was the founding member of the San Mateo County Domestic Violence Council, of which she's still obviously an active member, has been a member of the Legal Process Subcommittee for many, many years, I think since its inception, if I'm not mistaken. Has served as its chair on and off throughout the years. Linda's also served on the Commission for the Status of Women for 4 years, and she was the early resident expert on all things family law and domestic violence related, was a valued advisor and coach during a period when the then two domestic violence organizations, Battered Women's Services and Sir Juana Inez, underwent significant growth. Locally, Linda was instrumental in forming the first restraining order clinic that the Women's Center, a project of the Advisory Council on Women, aka the Women's Commission, ran in the early 90s. The Women's Center became Family Law Services before Jackie Spear sponsored legislation that created the Family Law Facilitators in 1996. Linda did most of the training for the volunteers and the staff of the Women's Center Family Law Services, and was therefore instrumental in laying the groundwork during those early challenging years. She's also served on the court's Family Law ADR Advisory Committee since 2002, and most recently, from 2008 to 2012, served as a Department of Justice Office of Violence peer reviewer. Personally, as a colleague on the DV Council, I've enjoyed Linda's passion and determination on behalf of survivors of domestic violence. She also actively promotes leadership and recognition for others. So as the one who first conceived of the idea of this award, It seems particularly fitting that she should be its recipient. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Supervisor Groom, did you have a comment?
Thank you, President Horsley. Congratulations to Linda. And, you know, she's obviously been a great leader in not just proactive, but in being reactive to how we stop domestic violence. I want to say one last word, if I may, about Barbara Hammerman, because she too was an early prevention leader with children and was one of the souls of our San Mateo Police Activities League program, which has grown and grown and grown. And now Frances serves on our board and continues to do the kind of work that Barbara was doing so that we can teach children at a very young age that violence is not good and that give them plenty of activity to keep them from thinking about other things. So, Frances, always remember you on this day also.
Item number 7 on the board's agenda will be back at 1:30 p.m. for a presentation of service awards. We're now into the regular agenda. Item number 8, Mr. Eggemeyer, and it's a public hearing to consider extending the urgency ordinance, amending on an interim basis, Chapter 15, Neighborhood Business District of San Mateo County zoning regulations relating to 3821 Fair Oaks Avenue and the unincorporated North Fair Oaks Avenue, and a waiver of reading the ordinance in its entirety. Yes, I was thinking the exact same thing. It's going to be too long. Mr.
Good morning, President Horsley, Supervisors, Mr. Maltby, Mr. Holland, and Mr. Byers. My name is Jim Eggemeyer. I'm the Director for the Planning and Building Department. For your consideration this morning, the department is requesting the extension of an interim ordinance referred to as the C1 NFO Fair Oaks District. Regulations for a period of 1 year or until such time as the interim zoning regulations are adopted, whichever comes first. Today, I would like to share with you a few slides that cover the site location, the past 12 months, and the next steps the department is taking. The specific site where the C1 NFO Fair Oaks District is located is at 3821 Fair Oaks on the northwest corner with San Benito as shown on this particular slide. The parcel is approximately 5,400 square feet in size, and the current business operator is the Bay Area Catering and Events, also referred to as BASE. The subject parcel is surrounded by single-family residences. There are no other commercial zoned properties in the vicinity. As you may recall, in November 2012, the department submitted for your review an urgency ordinance providing performance standards for this specific parcel. These standards were the same for the Middlefield Road District with an additional standard for operating hours. There were essentially 9 performance items that we put into the ordinance, and it also included number 10, the hours of operation specifically for that corner business. Your board approved the urgency ordinance, and by state law is only in effect for 45 days. At a subsequent hearing in December, before the 45 days expired, the department returned to your board and requested an extension of the urgency ordinance for 10.5 months, also allowed within the state laws. Your board approved the department's request and at the same time directed the department to explore rezoning the subject parcel. So this past March, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing and a site visit and the immediate area, and directed staff to do additional research to answer a number of questions and refine the information we had provided to them. Just last month, the Planning Commission conducted another public hearing and directed staff to prepare the necessary documents for their review and recommendation to rezone the property to single-family residential. This also includes a general plan amendment that correlates with that zoning designation. So we are currently preparing these necessary documents for the Planning Commission to make their recommendation to you. And as such, we need additional time in order to do so. So state code has written this into the law that allows for this type of extension. So we're here before your board today to request this extension. So during this time, I'd like to share with you the next steps that we're currently planning to take. In order to change the general plan and rezone the subject property, we need to comply with CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act. We're currently preparing an administrative draft for council's review and should be posting and making that document available for public comment by next week. There's a 21-day review period for the public and other agencies to comment. We're also preparing the necessary documents and staff report to return to the Planning Commission on November 20th. If the Planning Commission finds the information concurs with their direction to us, they will then make a decision and a recommendation to your board. Staff will then be moving forward with that, and we're tentatively considering December 10th as a possible hearing date for your consideration on that rezone to single-family residence. So today I'm asking and recommending that your board adopt the ordinance included in the staff report that extends the urgency ordinance for a period of 1 year or until such time that the non-interim zoning regulations are adopted, whichever comes first. So thank you very much for your time this morning, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions? Supervisor Slocum?
Thank you. Mr. Eggemeyer, thank you, first of all, for all your hard work on this difficult situation. Thanks to your staff also. Their efforts and responses to all the emails have been appreciated.
You're welcome.
I understand the performance standards that you mentioned, of which there were 9 and then eventually 10. A couple of those things, performance standards like odor and smoke, were somewhat subjective. That is, what is the difference between a puff of white vapor smoke versus chicken frying kind of smoke grease? And the other one was sort of the same way, that it was subjective. And I'm just wondering, we've all received a lot of emails on this topic, a lot of complaints about the operations at the base. And I'm wondering if you have any data from those complaints about how many complaints were on odor, how many complaints were on smoke, how many complaints were on hours of operation, or whatever they might be. And maybe you don't have to go through all those, but maybe the top 2 or 3 sort of complaints, and what was the nature?
Thank you for asking that question, because I too was curious about that, and so I've looked into that. And the complaints that we've received, we've also documented those in our permit tracking system. And so we've been tracking those since last November 2012, and we're almost current. There are a few that we haven't been able to update our computer tracking system on, but just kind of a rough count on those. We're looking at a little over 160 complaints that we received about the operation itself. And then I did a real quick count relative to the ones that we had received relative to odor, or if it was contained within a number of other items that we had received this alleged complaint on. There were over 80 relative to odor at this particular site. I had not refined it any greater further detail relative to smoke or noise that you had mentioned. I'm sorry.
Thank you. So just to be clear, there were 80 complaints out of the total that had to do with odor.
Right. Yes.
And I understand that, according to County Counsel, Mr. Niblin, that the county can't amend the emergency ordinance because of case law, I think it was.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's, yeah.
It's, if I may just jump in, it's actually statutory and case law. the area that the law that governs this area is Government Code 65858, and we do not think that the plain language of that government code provision provides clear legal authority for this board to materially amend this interim ordinance. I mean, it uses the word extend, which means length of time, not expansion of scope. So we think, just given the plain language of the statute, you do not have the ability to materially amend the ordinance today.
Thank you. Then maybe I'll just direct my next question to Mr. Byers, which is, could we then, if we can't amend, could we make a side letter agreement with the business operator, or an MOU, or some sort of document that would try to tighten up on the issue of odor, for instance?
Well, I think by all means, if we can reach a meeting of the minds with the owner on issues or concerns that neighbors, the board may have, then that's maybe worth the effort. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Regenmeyer.
Thank you.
It's close for a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Are there any, no, there are no comments. No, okay. So I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. So what's the pleasure of the board?
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the extension of the emergency ordinance with the understanding that County Council will approach the owner and try to create some sort of an MOU or side letter of an agreement that would try to tighten down some of these more subjective things like odor, which has been the source of most of the complaints.
Supervisor Slocum, John Niblin with the County Council's office. Just to clarify the motion, I think it might be equally productive, if not more productive, for us to contact the lessee, the operator of the business, as opposed to the property owner. I just wanted to be clear, you were talking about the owner of the business as opposed to the owner of the parcel.
That's fine. Whatever.
Thank you.
Whatever works. So that would be the motion, Mr. President.
I'll second that.
This call, well, it's 4/5 vote, so I'll have a roll call vote.
Supervisor Pine?
Aye.
Supervisor Groom?
Yes.
Supervisor Slocum?
Aye.
Supervisor Tissier?
Aye.
President Horsley?
Aye. Next item is, I'm going to actually take a break. So next item is, I think, is going to take a lot of time, and I don't want to break in the middle of that because I'm sorry, Sal, but I want to make sure that we're able to take this all at one time instead of having a break in the middle of that and breaking the continuity. So we'll take a 10-minute break until 11:15. Okay, we're on to item number 9. This is the introduction of an ordinance amending section 2-2.20. Let me start that over again. It's section 2.02.020, et cetera, titled the San Mateo County Ordinance Code establishing the boundaries of the supervisorial districts and waiver of reading of the ordinance in its entirety. So I want to also thank my two colleagues, Supervisor Adrian Tessier and Supervisor Warren Slocum. I know this was a total of about 10 meetings that they chaired. It was a long, good process, and I want to thank them for taking this on. And I want to then turn this over to Supervisor Adrian Tessier. You want my glasses?
Actually, John, I thought you were going to say a few words first, just about the original process, and then I'd talk about what we did, or do you want me to go ahead and start?
You know, I wasn't planning on it,
Okay.
Supervisor Tissier. I'm happy to summarize it unless you'd like to do it.
No, I thought you were going to make some comment, but that's fine. I'm more than happy to do this. As my colleague indicated, that we did hold 10 public meetings on this idea of district lines. And we held these meetings in each of the districts, and we held 2 in each district because we want to make sure everybody had the opportunity to get there. We also spent a great deal of time and effort on outreach, which was done by Marshall Wilson in the county manager's office. And all the public comment that was taken was transcribed in on a video, so we wanted to make sure that we got it on the website so everybody had the opportunity to see what had taken place. And the committee, at the end of the day, recommended that we adopt one of the three maps, the Community Unity map, the Equity map, or the Nakamura 1G map. There were 31 maps that were reviewed, and we vetted all of them. And we also had Doug Johnson, who sort of led the charge for us to make sure he looked at all the maps, made sure he could get all the demographics and all for us and all the materials we needed. And so today, the Board of Supervisors has the option today to either adopt one of these maps or a different map, or modify, or leave everything alone. They basically are getting advice from this committee and have the opportunity to listen to the public comment again today, and either make a decision today or ask for more tweaking on some maps if need be. But we do have to take some action within the 2 more meetings that we have. So with that, I'm going to introduce Doug Johnson. He led the charge and kept us on task, and he's going to walk us through sort of what took place and what's on our plate today, and sort of where we go from here.
Thank you, Supervisor Tessier, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be with you. Again, I'm Douglas Johnson. I'm president of National Demographics. Just very briefly, our firm works with jurisdictions all across California and across the Southwest. In fact, we've worked on probably around 150 or so of these redistricting projects now since the company formed in 1979. So it's always interesting. Everyone is different, and that's what keeps the job interesting. So it's been a pleasure to work with all of you here in San Mateo County on this. I want to start out just briefly, for those who may be in the audience and may not have had a chance to attend one of the forums, with really a summary of what we would introduce the sessions with, which is really the rules and process for redistricting, and focus on what are the goals and requirements of a plan. And then I'll get into the plans, and then really the nuts and bolts tonight, which is the differences and choices presented by the various plans. Just to highlight, everything that I'm going to cover is in the memo that you received, and I think is in the agenda packet for the public as well. First of all, despite the common perception of redistricting, there actually are rules that govern the process, primarily federal rules. We have the one probably most people are most aware of, which is equal population. The federal government says each district needs to contain an equal number of people, and it is people. It's not registered voters, it's not citizens, it's not people over 18, it's equal number of people. A little bit of deviation is allowed if that deviation is explained. For example, if there's no way to get the deviation down smaller without dividing a city or without crossing a major freeway that's being used as a border. Some explanation for that deviation is required. And there used to be a nice, easy plus or minus 5% rule of thumb where you were fine as long as you were within that. That's no longer true. Last decade, the court threw out that kind of safe harbor and really said just about any deviation needs to be explained. The second federal law is the Federal Voting Rights Act. And while there's been a lot of press about the Supreme Court's ruling on Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, that only applied in 3 California counties. It never applied here in San Mateo County. But we do have Section 2 of the Federal Voting Rights Act, which does apply to the whole country. And really it says that where you have a geographically compact protected class, meaning African American, Asian American, Native American, or Latino community, you cannot draw the lines in a way that would divide up that community with the result of diluting their ability to elect their chosen candidates. So this is something that we try to be very conservative on and try to just not risk any potential violation there. There are a couple of state code mentions of county redistricting. First of all is 21-500, which says the county may consider topography, geography, cohesiveness, compactness, and communities of interest. And then 21-506, which says essentially that redistricting won't impact the current term of the current supervisors. So if someone does get moved out of their district, their term doesn't end immediately. It just means they have to move before they can, if they want to run again. What redistricting usually focuses on is what are not legal requirements, but what the courts have termed traditional criteria or traditional redistricting principles. The one that we hear the most about, justifiably, is communities of interest. And the districts should be drawn to respect communities of interest. Now, what is a community of interest? It could be just about anything. It could be a city. You know, at the county level, obviously the cities have a lot of concerns. It could be a school district. It could be as simple as a neighborhood, an area around a given school, an area around a park. It really boils down to whatever the people who live in a given neighborhood define as their community of interest. Next, two are to follow visible boundaries. It's easier for the voters if districts follow freeways, rivers, things like that, than it is if they carve up and down different streets. And then compactness and contiguity. Again, these are aimed at making it easier for the voters to understand their district borders and really to recruit their neighbors to go out and walk precincts and get involved in elections and policy decisions in the district. The other three traditional criteria, continuity in office. This is the idea that re-election decisions should be up to the voters, and where possible, without violating the other criteria or laws, the courts have said it's perfectly acceptable to consider where incumbent elected officials reside. The idea is whether or not someone gets reelected should be up to the voters, and redistricting shouldn't come through and tell the voters, sorry, we're going to put two of them together, you can only have one. Again, it's not a legal requirement, but it's something the courts have said is fine to consider. Population growth, this is much more of a factor in areas growing much faster than San Mateo County. We have some jurisdictions that are growing by 50% in a decade, and we try to take some steps to accommodate that, but it's less of a factor here. And then preserve the core of existing districts. This is the idea that if a district is off by 1% or 2% or even 3%, but none of the other criteria would drive a change, then it's okay to keep that deviation to retain the existing district. The thought is that over the course of the time where a district's in place, usually a decade, relationships have been built up. Organizations have started working together on elections, and there's no need to disrupt those relationships just for a 1 or 2% deviation. So those are the rules and criteria. As the supervisor mentioned, there was a lot of outreach in this effort. 10 meetings, we had great turnout at those meetings. Hundreds of public comments. Also, there was an online redistricting system. So you'll hear a lot of references to different maps throughout the day. The public was actually drawing lines. One of the things I love about these systems is normally the public said, okay, you can come up and say, I like this idea, I dislike this idea. Well, if they dislike it, now they have the opportunity to go draw it themselves, fix it themselves. So this is a new thing in redistricting the last couple of years, and it really has changed the degree that the public can really get their hands on and participate in this. I do want to cover a little bit, just because historically this county, as you know, has had at-large elections. So people may not be all that familiar with the existing districts and exactly what there is in each district. So I want to spend a minute to go through that, and then I'll talk about the changes that each plan proposes, each of the recommended plans coming from the committee. So the numbering in the county is a little unusual. District 5 is at the north, at the top end, and District 5 includes all of Daly City, all of Brisbane and Colma, and along with a portion of South San Francisco, that portion that's west of El Camino Real. And that's District 5. Along the coast, if we move southwest a little bit, we get Pacifica, essentially everything west of Interstate 280, except there is a piece of San Bruno that extends west of 280, and that stays in District 1 with the rest of San Bruno. But it also, because there was not enough population along the coast west of 280, it also goes across in District 3, includes Atherton, San Carlos, the area between Atherton and Redwood City called the Sequoia Tract, most of Emerald Lake Hills, Devonshire, and Redwood Shores, the Redwood Shores portion of the city of Redwood City. A portion of Belmont, and then all of Woodside, Portola Valley, Half Moon Bay, all those jurisdictions on to the south and west. It also includes most, not quite all, but most of the unincorporated area known as West Menlo Park. It's in the kind of southwestern portion of the city of Menlo Park. So those are all District 3. You can see it covers a lot of area and has certainly the most unusual shape, as it's really, the purpose is pretty clear, and you'll see this in all the maps. where there's not enough people on the coast to make a full district. So the question then is, what do you put with the coast? District 1 is the rest of South San Francisco, the portion that's not in 5, along with all of San Bruno, Millbrae, Burlingame, Hillsborough, the Burlingame Hills, and the San Mateo Highlands. District 2 is all of San Mateo, all of Foster City, and the northern 3/4 really of Belmont. So I think it's actually the smallest of the districts with its population density that you get in those areas. And then finally, District 4 also has a little bit of an unusual shape given how it relates to District 3, but it consists of most of Redwood City, everything except Redwood Shores, and then if you really know the borders of Redwood City, the kind of southwestern corner is kind of a foot or a boot that comes off of there, and that boot is also in District 3 today. But the rest of it is in District 4, along with all of Menlo Park, all of East Palo Alto, and the North Fair Oaks area, the Menlo Oaks area, and portions of that unincorporated West Menlo Park area. So it's a quick tour through the existing districts. One of the things that I wanted to do, and that I was asked to do by the county, is to look at the current districts and the proposed plans. And this is just a snapshot. The full report is actually, even printed tabloid, it's still 3 pages. And what I'm looking for in here is any sign of dilution. Do any of these plans raise a voting rights concern because they dilute the ability of a protected class group to make their choices heard and to elect their preferred candidates? Let me just pull a little bit of this. I don't know if the audience can see this, but hopefully can. What I did in this is I looked at 19 elections, statewide and local elections, held in 2012 and 2010, to see in the current district, comparing the current districts to the 3 recommended plans. And really, if you're diluting, if one plan dilutes the power of a protected class relative to another plan, what you'll see is the preferred candidate of that protected class winning a seat in one plan and losing a seat in another plan. So I'm looking at differences. For example, the top one here is Measure B, the district election measure in 2012. And one of the things that is interesting about this county is politically at least, while ethnically it's very diverse, politically it is quite homogeneous. And you'll see in the current districts, District 1 voted yes 58% for Measure B. In the current districts, District 2, wow, 58%. District 3, 58%. District 4, 58%. District 5, 62%. So remarkable homogeneity across the county on this issue. But that, in terms of looking at dilution, then I look at the 3 plans and saying, okay, it's not likely to happen since Measure B passed in every district, but is there any place where there's a big jump where what might be perceived as the Asian American or Latino point of view did better? And really, we don't see any significant change. You see it goes from 58 to 59% in the Nakamura 1G plan in District 1. In the equity plan, it goes from 58% in the current district to 59% in District 1. The Community Unity 4 plan goes from 58% to 59%. And one of the interesting things is in 16 of the 19 elections I looked at, there's never more than a 2% shift. So really what that's telling us is there's no dilution because the results are the same in every plan. A 2% difference is really inconsequential shift. The only 3 elections where there was any shift more than 2% were the 2010 statewide partisan offices. So what I looked at, make sure I get the list right. I looked at the California Lieutenant Governor's race, the Controller's race, and the Attorney General's race. And I highlight the Attorney General race, but the same thing happened in all of them, in all those 3 elections. What you get is District 1 in the current districts was 57% for Kamala Harris. In the other 3 plans, it's essentially the same. It's 62% in District 1. So the percentage of the vote for, in this case, the Democratic candidate, Kamala Harris, went up by 5%. This is reflecting a shift between 1 and 2. You see in District 2, Kamala Harris got 61%, and in the other three plans, that goes down to 57%. The other three seats are essentially the same. So we're really not finding a significant shift because while, yes, there is a 57 to 62% shift, she's still winning 57 to 43. You know, the only difference in these plans is the Democratic candidate's margin, 15% or 19% or 20%, not a change in who would be elected. So we saw that District 1 and District 2 shift in comparison of the current districts, all three plans, in the three partisan elections I analyzed. In all the nonpartisan offices, county and state, including superintendent of education for the state, we're back to the no more than 2% deviation. So a lot of numbers, took a lot of analysis and time to really come back and say, really, there's no dilution in comparing the current districts to Nakamura 1G, to Equity Plan, to the Community Unity 4. They all come out with essentially the same lack of dilution of any protected class. No plan is reversing the preference of any protected class. So that leaves us the other federal requirement, which is balanced population. And here you've got your existing districts, which have a total population deviation. This is the difference between the smallest and the largest district of only 3.33%. Tiny deviation, especially considering that these numbers are 3 years old. Just to give you the specifics, the largest district is District 2, which is 1.87% over. And the smallest district is District 5, which is 1.46% under. So that the difference between the two of them is a plan deviation. The Community Unity 4 map has a bit higher deviation. It's 5.38% between the smallest and largest districts. It's getting higher, but you should be okay as long as there's a clear explanation for why that deviation is there. The Nakamura 1G and the equity plans are significantly higher at 8% and 8.2%. I believe the equity group actually has a revised map they're going to present in their comments that bring that down a bit. But those numbers are starting to get to be a concern. What happens is, while there's no safe harbor anymore, if that deviation gets to 10%, then the burden of proof to prove that it's constitutional shifts to being on the county, as opposed to any plaintiff who's challenging a plan having the burden of proof as long as you're below 10%. And again, we've seen plans that high, but they have to have very strong justification, and there has to be no way to do the community of interest concerns while reducing the deviation. So that is the other federal requirement. Then we get into all the community of interest issues, and these are really the nuts and bolts of the decisions. And this map is really highlighting where the different plans have differences, and you can see there are a bunch of them as you go from north to south, but let me walk through them in detail. A little easier to process one by one. So the first area where there's a difference between the plans is Brisbane. The Nakamura 1G plan puts Brisbane into District 1. The current districts, the Equity Plan and the Community Unity Plan, all leave Brisbane in District 5. So the next plan, or the next area to look at, is South San Francisco. So it's a little hard to see here, but hopefully as I talk through it, you can sort out the different lines. So the current lines, the current border between 1 and 5 runs essentially north-south through South San Francisco along El Camino Real, the blue line that you can see. I guess it's northwest to southeast, running there. The Community Unity map also follows that border along El Camino Real. So really no change in the city of South San Francisco. The Equity Plan moves the border west to the red line. It's actually running down Junipero Serra Boulevard. You can see, it's not my computer, so I can't highlight it with the mouse, but you can see just east of 280 running along Junipero Serra, and then down at the bottom of the city, it joins with 280. Then the more radical change is the Nakamura 1G plan, which shifts the border. It follows 280 up out of San Bruno. It's the brown line, following 280 up out of San Bruno, and then turning along Westboro. It runs along Westboro to the northeast, up Chestnut, and then across Hillside and sister cities. So you get a very different division of the city of South San Francisco in that plan. Another area where there's a big change amongst the plans and big differences is in San Mateo and Hillsborough as well. So I tried to get this on a slide. Not sure how well this worked. But in the current lines, Hillsborough is in District 1. In all three of the alternatives, Hillsborough moves into District 2. And then currently San Mateo is united. The whole city is in District 2. In all three of the alternatives, they divide off the kind of northern or northeastern portion of San Mateo. Each map does it in a different way. The community unity map comes down really from the southeastern corner of Burlingame. It leaves San Mateo High in District 2. You can see kind of the line kind of curving around San Mateo High, and then coming back west to close to the railroad. Then the blue line, it jogs along down to the east, kind of making its way over to the bay. Hopefully you can follow that. The equity plan is a simpler to follow line. It's the red line coming down from the middle of Burlingame. It runs down, actually down the railroad tracks to 4th, and then it cuts over 4th, and then over as it gets close to the bay, it turns east a little bit. But it's really the railroad tracks and 4th as a border for that plan. Then the Nakamura plan, it's a little hard to follow. It moves around the most. You can see it moves a little bit west of the railroad tracks and a little bit east, and it comes down to 5th. It comes down a block farther than the equity plan does before heading east over to, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right, but Amphlett? Amphlett, where it goes south until it gets to actually the canal where the bay is coming in. So same idea in each one of them. They each take close to the same number of people from the city of San Mateo, but they do it in very different ways as they carve through the neighborhoods. The next big area of difference is Belmont. So the current lines kind of have kind of a winding division through the city, the blue line that goes through the middle of the city. I'm told, I haven't confirmed this, but I'm told that that's following a school attendance line, but I don't know. Maybe one of the public speakers may be able to confirm or rebut that. One of the speakers at our public forums said he thought that's what the line was based on. But each of the plans takes a very different approach. Community Unity and Nakamura 1G both unite Belmont. They put the whole city into District 2. The equity plan unites the western portion, the area west of El Camino Real. It actually uses El Camino Real as a border. So Belmont east of El Camino Real and San Carlos east of El Camino Real go into District 4 in the equity map. That's the only one that cuts San Carlos. It's that equity plan. Then the last detail area to show you is the Menlo Park area. Is that right? So we've got currently Menlo Park is united in District 4. The area between Atherton and Redwood City, known as the Sequoia Track, is in District 3, while North Fair Oaks and Menlo Oaks, which are also unincorporated areas, are in D4, District 4. The community unity map, the equity map, and the Nakamura maps all divide Menlo Park, but they do it in different places. The community unity map divides them along El Camino Real. It also changes Menlo Oaks to be in District 3. The equity map puts the border the farthest east. It's the red line up by the 101 freeway. And it divides along the 101 freeway and Bay Road. And then Menlo Oaks moves to District 3, and Sequoia Tract actually moves to District 4. And then the Nakamura 1G map is along Middlefield Road, with Menlo Oaks also moving to District 3 and Sequoia Tract moving to District 4. And then, I don't know if I mentioned the community unity map divides Menlo Park along El Camino Real. So a lot of different pieces in these different plans, a lot of different choices community by community. Some of these pieces are interchangeable. We can take something from one plan and put it with something else from another plan. But obviously we need to balance the populations in each situation and also, of course, pay attention to the communities and what makes sense. So you've got a lot of information. Hopefully you've had a chance to read through the memo in a little more detail, but I'm happy to answer any questions now or after the public comment as well.
I was remiss when we first started to recognize those that were on the committee, and those have been waiting patiently since 9 o'clock. But if those that were on the committee, if you'd please stand up, and let's thank them for all the time and effort they put into this. And the officers.
Supervisor Pine?
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Johnson. I think it was mentioned there were 31 maps submitted, and how many of those were Nakamura maps?
I think about 14 or 15,
Okay.
and then actually we got 4 more from him yesterday
Well, no,
afternoon.
those don't count right now, but okay.
Not in time for today.
Supervisor Groom? Any other questions?
Just one thing that I'd also like to see. I know that we received it in our packet. I don't recall if we saw this the night of our last meeting, but there's also, I know we're going to get into public comment, but there's also some public comments that came in through email. It's all on the website, but I'd never seen it tallied, and I would hope that at some point, maybe after public comment, we can also get those comments up so people can see, all the information that came through to us. So, because that's really what we're going to end up having to look at today, as well as looking at and hearing comments as to whether or not we want to pick one of these or tweak, as you say, or leave things alone. But I think we need to get all the information into the board and let the public see the kind of comments we also receive. So maybe after we get public comment, we can also put that up, because that's additional public comment that we have to take into consideration.
Yes, we actually have it on the county computer, so we can
you
show
do?
that
Oh, great.
after that
Okay,
public
good.
comment if you like.
Well, I just have one question. One of the things that what a board member does, actually, I break our job down essentially into 3 parts. One is that we obviously make countywide policy decisions and things like criminal justice, health and human services, and then board members serve on a variety of boards and commissions. And then some board members, actually we all have some level of unincorporated communities. And those unincorporated communities really rely upon board members to access city-type services, which include planning, building, public works. And did the committee at all consider the interaction between citizens and the unincorporated communities and board members? Because those interactions are extremely high, and I don't know if that was any part of the consideration. Because most of I look a lot at District 3. There's a whole number of different unincorporated communities that are all disparate and all require different attention, different kinds of issues. So was that at all considered?
I don't recall it being discussed certainly not in any detail at the committee level. Actually did it at the county staff's request. I looked at how many unincorporated people are in each district in each of the plans. And no surprise from your day-to-day lives, but in the current lines, 53% of the county's unincorporated population are in District 3, 30% are in District 4, and then the others have less than 10%. In the Community Unity Plan, District 3 goes up to 64% of the county's unincorporated population. So District 4 goes down to about 25%, and then the others swap some territory, but all stay below 10. Equity and the Nakamura 1G plans are very similar to today. 52% of the county's unincorporated population in each of those is in District 3, 31% is in District 4, and then similar amounts in less than 10 in the other 3.
That's one of the existing voter registration is kind of interesting. I thought it was very interesting. For example, District 3, I've got 90,000 registered voters. District 5 has 59,000. Has anybody ever talked about voter registration as an issue for any of the districts?
I think the disparate numbers that would happen whenever you switch to a district election system, you do get that effect. Were mentioned a couple times. This is a big debate at the Supreme Court level of should districts be equal in population or should they be equal in number of registered voters. And right now the rule is in population, and you do end up with big disparities given age differences, citizenship differences, and then just proclivity to register differences in different parts of the county. But yes, you do get some significant differences.
Now, I don't know if you can speak to this last one, but the community, I guess the district cleanup map made it all the way to the 9th meeting and then fell out. Is there anything you could elucidate us on why that fell out? I guess it was a 5-4. It's like the Supreme Court vote.
I guess I'm sure some of the members of the public will comment on that. I don't know if any of the committee members are going to comment, but if they do, I'd leave some of that to them. But just at a very basic level, I think that the 3 plans that were recommended in the big picture are fairly similar. They're making changes here and there in individual communities, but the committee's 3 recommendations all were the same similar idea, and the kind of precinct cleanup map was a different idea.
Okay. Last question for me is that in the community unity map, is the number of minority voters statistically different than or similar to any of the other maps that were approved, including the current existing district lines? In other words, is it statistically significant?
It's a good question. I think they're pretty. The 3 recommended plans are all pretty close. The difference. I mean, look, I've got the numbers here. In terms of, we have 2 counts among registered voters. We have Spanish surnamed and Asian surnamed counts. Both are less than perfect measures. But in District 1, we have 14%, in the current districts, we have 14% Spanish surnamed, and community unity, that goes up to 17%. District 1 has 10% Asian surnamed, and that stays at 10% Asian surnamed in the community unity map. Looking at the others are 17 and 9 and 16 and 10. So the 3 recommended plans are all essentially the same. And it's a difference of 3%, which is not a huge difference, especially when you get into error rates and things like that. But it is a small increase that comes out at 2. Comes out, 2 goes down to offset that.
I guess I'm also wondering about what about the current lines? Are they statistically different, or is the difference statistically significant?
It's small. That's in District 1 and, well, let me just go through it. So District 1, the 3 recommended plans increase the Spanish surname voters in District 1 by about 2 or 3%. Not a huge jump, but a small increase. In District 4, the Spanish surname registered voters goes up from 14% in the current lines to 15, 16, and 15. So 1%, which is, I don't know if it's statistically significant. I guess I would define what we're looking at. It certainly didn't make any impact in the election behavior of the districts. They all are within 2% of voting and overwhelming one way or another.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment, as you were asking what some of the comments were that night, and I'm sure you'll hear plenty of them. But I think the common thread was communities of interest. And it's interesting because people see their communities of interest very differently, whether they're affiliated with a church or a school or a park or, an ethnic group. So it was kind of interesting. I think you'll hear when everybody speaks that that's always the hardest part. I think the night of, obviously some of us wanted to see the precinct cleanup map comes because these were all so similar. We wanted the board, and I realize the board can look at anything they want. The one thing that was missing that night, and it's really unfortunate, is that the public comments that were made either by email or by phone calls or website were not presented again that last night. They're all on the website, and I think once you see that as well, that's something that didn't get considered. And if you look at, you'll see it later, but you'll see that there was a tremendous number that said don't split any cities, and a tremendous number that says use the tremendous, I say tremendous, and the most numbers on support the cleanup map. But that, we didn't have that night, which was really unfortunate. It was asked for. In fact, our alternate had asked for that, and we just never really quite saw it in our hands. We may have seen it on the website, but I didn't.
Okay.
That didn't really come across. So, anyway, with that, just you'll hear a lot of good things today.
Well, there's a whole number of speakers, but I just would like to congratulate Supervisor Pine. A whole series of your constituents said they wanted to keep you. So it was an amazing number of, there was like 40 people in that. That was a big stack. And in any case, you should be congratulated. You've obviously done a fine job up there. Just one person who actually had to leave was Mayor Ray Benaventura from Daly City, and he just asked that I state that he's a statement of support for the community unity map. So we have a whole series of people. The first one is David Carey, followed by Sal Torres.
Thank you, Supervisors. My name is David Carey, and I live in Belmont. The drawing of district boundaries for single winner elections holds considerable power for manipulating future election results by erecting artificial, unnecessary electoral barriers. There is no way to erect these barriers in a way that is fair to all voters. By-district elections under any three of these recommended plans will be significantly fairer than the traditional exclusionary elections that we had until recently. But any district elections, regardless of how their electoral barriers are erected, will fall well short of the fully free and fair elections that voters deserve and that someday we will have. Having the Board of Supervisors manipulate the results of the board's own future elections poses a clear conflict of interest. That you are required to make these choices is yet another failure of state law. It is not unusual that elected representatives who represent voters well in other issues are out of touch with voters on election issues, often because of that conflict of interest. All of you are talented, capable, and dedicated. Please do not underestimate your abilities to adapt to change when there are opportunities to make improvements. So I ask that each of you be mindful of your conflict of interest and give great deference to the recommendations of the advisory committee. The committee recommended 3 redistricting plans, and they even ranked them in order of preference. Their first choice was the Community Unity 4 plan. If you think you have found some compelling reasons and want instead to override your own advisory committee's recommendation, I ask that you do 2 things. First, clearly tell us what those compelling reasons are, and second, defer a final decision to allow a community response to your perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Sal Torres, followed by Greg Conlon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Most respected members of the Board of Supervisors, my name is Gonzalo Sal Torres, proud member of the City Council of Daly City. Thank you for the privilege to have served on the county's redistricting committee. It was one of the best memories of my political career, not just for the chance to reshape how a county will vote, but for the opportunity to shape the destiny of its people. Today, I implore you to adopt the Community Unity Map. Although we are the last county to move to district elections, we can be the first county to make the best allocation of its new districts. Redraw these lines to maximize the hopes, capture the dreams, grant the wishes, and heed the thousands of votes of the many communities within our county's borders who voted to reshape our county's electoral future in resounding fashion. It is in this one place you make this one decision to answer this one collective voice to create new district lines and create more fair elections. You have the chance for the first time in our county's history to join communities of interest together. Join our youth communities and empower them to lead us to a better future. Join our communities of Asian Americans who seek out justice and equality for all who now call America home. Join our communities of seniors whose votes in the elections of yesterday now yearn for the vision of tomorrow's leaders. Join our communities of African Americans whose struggles a half-century ago led a civil rights movement that opened the gates of voting polls across our country. Join our communities of Latinos whose language and culture have never been barriers to neighborhood collaboration, but are the very building blocks of a better community. Please adopt the Community Unity Map. Although he died 25 years ago, we still live in the inspirational shadow of the great voting rights pioneer, Willie Velazquez, who is most synonymous with the phrase, su voto es su voz. Your vote is your voice. The Community Unity Map is indeed San Mateo County's vote and its voice.
First of all, thank you for your service on the commission, but Supervisor Pine asked to ask you a question.
Yes.
Yes, if I may. Very early on in the process, there was some speculation that perhaps districts could be drawn in the North County to move, a good segment, some segment of Daly City into District 1 to make District 1 and District 5 have a, more diverse population and have a different socioeconomic profile. And if I recall, there were, big protests at the Daly City Council about the possibility. And what is your position on that? Were you supportive of splitting Daly City, or
No, not at all. Keeping Daly City Hall is important.
Right.
To
So
the
what do you say to the cities that you'd have to split under your map that aren't split today? How do you I mean, there's obviously a tension between cities splitting and the other goals that you elucidate.
I mean, one of the challenges we have is that there's various communities of interest that might be found in two different cities or might be found in the same city itself. Daly City is one of those cities where the communities of interest actually lie within its borders. I'm not advocating that we then disregard other cities, but the communities of interest that we identified sometimes do fall in different cities, and Community Unity Map is one of the maps of all the maps you're considering that cuts the fewest amounts of cities.
Thank you.
Well, Councilman Torres, as somebody who grew up in Daly City, I agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg Conlon, followed by Rebecca Eisen.
Yes, I'm Greg Conlon from Atherton. I just want a couple general comments and a couple specific comments. The general comments, I want to applaud the committee that you appointed. I went virtually to all 10 meetings, just because I have a very strong interest in it just be done properly, because you do it once every 10 years. And I think, I know the temptation for you will be to protect your district that you were elected in, because that's self-interest and natural inclination. But I'm just cautioning you a little bit that if you don't go along with the commission recommendations, one of them, I think you got a bad faith argument that, why did they do all this work if you're going to go back where you started? So I think you need to recognize the work that was done and how the input was very thorough, and whether it's any one of these three maps would be good. But I just think you need to keep that in the back of your mind. Now, I live in Atherton, and one of my concerns is the split of two cities not in the same district, Menlo and Atherton. I mean, I think the commonality there, the community of interest is so great between the two communities. I mean, the Athertonians shop in Menlo, the Menlo-Atherton High School, the fire district. I mean, there's a number of reasons why they should be together. So it doesn't, and Menlo is in District 4 and Atherton is in District 3. So I just think that all three of the recommendations split Menlo, but I think the equity plan has 78% of the Menlo people in that one district, where the others separated greater. I think the other issue generally is if you stay where you are, I think there's a challenge that could be raised that you're violating a couple of the rules that you put up on the map. And I just think that you need to be cautious of that. And the one example is Menlo is in District 4, Atherton's in District 3, Redwood City's in District 4, San Carlos is in District 3. So, I mean, it's not compact, there's no continuity of, so I think you run the risk of a challenge because of that. So I recommend that you adopt
Thanks, Mr. Conlon.
the equity plan.
And, it's next Rebecca Eisen, followed by Mike Gingona.
Hello, good afternoon, President Don Horsley and honorable members of Board of Supervisors. I am Rebecca Eison from Daly City, and I thank you, the Board of Supervisors, for considering boundary lines that will determine each supervisorial district. I will start with a quote. "The will of the people is the only legitimate foundation of the government, and to protect the free expression should be our first object," unquote, by Thomas Jefferson. Therefore, I urge the Board of Supervisors to enforce the Community Unity 4 map, which we, the Board appointed District Lines Advisory Committee, overwhelmingly voted for. Through evidentiary support of the community members in our 10 public meetings, their emails, their voices, we heard it. Most of the districts will have the same strong communities of interest, be their education, health, jobs, transportations, and wants. Other districts are culturally and linguistically diverse, and for Pacifica and other coastal cities, they have their uniqueness and way of coastal life. I put my trust in you, Honorable Board of Supervisors. I know all of our precious times, the gas and efforts were not wasted. And also, the rule by the people are the source of the political power. Thank you.
And thank you for your service on the advisory committee as well. Mike Ngona from the great city of Daly City, followed by South City Mayor Pedro Gonzalez from the great city of South San Francisco.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. First of all, I'd like to thank you first for taking the time to take up this issue, to put forth people on the advisory committee that were engaging, and were very good at their job. I come before you to speak on behalf of not just myself, but also for Daly City. There's a large community of interest there. We support and would advocate for you to back Community Unity Map 4C. And I'll give you a few examples of what our community of interest consists of. Daly City, Pacifica, South San Francisco, Colma, those areas are overlaid with a number of different community things. You've got the St. Augustine Church, you've got the Jefferson Elementary School District, Seton Medical Center, which supports all of those areas, in our area, Fairmont Shopping Center, Westboro. Mission Street leads to El Camino Real. It's one of the things that we're on almost every day. The North County Fire Board is there. We have a joint powers board that deals with fire protection in that area. There were a few other things that the Community Unity Map addressed, and that was that in South San Francisco, it keeps El Camino as a border in South San Francisco. That's a geographic border that is one that's easy to remember, and I think it facilitates good government. In Menlo Park, it keeps El Camino again as a border. That's another thing that the Community Unity Map does that the other maps, or at least a few of them, don't do. San Mateo County, over 50% of the unincorporated area stays in District 3. I think that for governance purposes, I think that facilitates good government. So I would ask and request that you take a look at this process that you went through, and trust it, and trust the fact that you had community members that spent their time and effort to do this, and that you should support them as well. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Mike. That's the mayor of South San Francisco, Pedro Gonzalez, followed by Julio Garcia.
Good morning, President Don Horsley and members, supervisors. It's a pleasure to come to South City, whether it's in the morning, noontime, or nighttime. I always enjoy it. Thank you. You have a great city. I am here as mayor of the city of South San Francisco, and urge you to adopt the equity map. Since September 24th, when the advisory committee reviewed equity map, we have made some adjustments. This plan is known as the equity map because 6 cities share the burden of city splits. In support of keeping the majority of cities within South San Mateo County whole, the city of South San Francisco sacrifices the most in terms of the city split among the 6 cities that are split. Our split is 71.92% to 28.08% under this plan. Therefore, we take the lead in showing compromise to the rest of the San Mateo County. Even though we are not whole, the proposed split is better than existing status quo, which divides our community in behalf. So I urgently support of the equity map. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pedro. And the next is Julio Garcia, followed by Pardeep Gupta.
Morning, members of the board. My name is Julio Garcia. First of all, I want to thank the advisory committee that went to 10 meetings, and for me, a big hoo-hoo for the community members who participated there. So we fill up sometimes, we drop to different places. We were in East Palo Alto, San Mateo, Half Moon Bay, participating in this process. And for us, the Latinos and the monolingual Spanish speakers, it was really, really important to be involved in this process. I mean, we voted, we look at all the maps, and we are supporting the Community Unity Map for. This is going to be for civic participation not only in our future, but in the years to come, and for the kids that we have in those districts. I think, sometimes we lack of civic participation in the elections that we have, local elections in South County. They're really low participations, but with the Community Unity Map, we believe that we want to increase that civic participation in our county. And also, I want to just comment in the public comments that were made by email. So we need to consider that we have a big digital divide in the minority communities. We don't have access to internet. We don't have access to computers. And I know that, we received 44 last-minute entries supporting other maps, but none of the entries participating in all this process that took 10 meetings, and there were just emails that were sent. I bet that if any of the 44 entries were in those meetings, you would change your mind and support the community map as we are today. So I just want you to consider that, please, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Pradeep Gupta from the great city of South San Francisco, followed by Christopher Bowman. I think it's Christopher Bowman.
Thank you very much, President Don Horsley and the other members of the board. My name is Pradeep Gupta, and I'm from South San Francisco. And I just wanted to echo some of the sentiments that were expressed by our mayor, Pedro Gonzalez. We all know that South San Francisco brings a lot to the county. It's the 4th largest city with significant industrial and employment potential. And currently, the divisions of the districts are such that we are split 50-50 almost. But under the previous conditions of countywide elections, that split really did not have that much impact as it would be under the new rules of district by district elections, because previously all our residents were able to elect all the 5 supervisors, but now our city would be divided into pieces with only able to vote for one or the other district. Now, among all the 3 maps in front of you, I recommend the equity map because it does the least harm that way. It splits the city in 71 or 29% split, which still is better than having a 50-50 split in the other maps. So I strongly recommend, from my perspective and this councilman's perspective, that you go with equity map. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Gupta, and Christopher Bowman, followed by Carol Matsumoto.
Thank you, Here's the 8 copies, if you could pass them on to the members of the board. Supervisors, I'm Chris Bowman. I'm the line drawer for what was the equity plan. We have now Equity 3, which we are passing on to you, which addresses the issue that Supervisor Tessier and Committee Member Arietta said at the meeting on the 24th when they recommended ours as the second priority plan coming out of the committee. We have gotten the variance down from 8.2 to 4.99% by basically shifting 0.7% of the population from the proposals under equity plan to the Equity 3 plan. Basically, it's the northern edge of South San Francisco, so it drops from 77% to 71.9%. And we move basically downtown Belmont into District 4, which is a shift of about 1,900 people, but it's still not as divided as under the current districts, which is 26–27%. The important thing is that no city under our proposal is divided more than 28%. Now, if you reduce the number of cities that are divided, inevitably, those cities that are split will be divided by a higher percentage. If you approach 50-50, which some of these plans do, and also the cleanup map does, which is not under your consideration at this point, you've effectively disempowered whatever community that is. South San Francisco, for instance, is the 4th largest city in the county. Right now, it's the 2nd largest city in District 1. That is unconscionable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carol Matsumoto, followed by Joanna Ingram.
Good morning. Good morning, President Horsley and board members. I'm Carol Matsumoto, President Pro Tem of the City of South San Francisco. I'm going to be reiterating some of what my fellow colleagues said, but obviously I'm here on behalf of the City Council and the city requesting that you give consideration to and adopt the equity plan. I and my colleagues and residents have attended numerous advisory committee meetings and believe that among the advisory committee's goals, they wanted to keep residents in San Mateo cities together and reduce the number of political orphans in San Mateo County. South San Francisco should not be split as it is now because it minimizes the opportunity of one of its residents to someday have an equal chance of success to run for a supervisorial seat. Now that voting is limited to a specific district, the existing district boundaries are not fair to South San Francisco. South San Francisco now holds 58% of the political orphans in San Mateo County, which is the highest of any city. For being the 4th largest city in the county and with a significant industrial and employment base, South San Francisco lacks political influence. The city believes that the equity map does the best job of accomplishing the goals of the advisory committee. Although the map does divide 6 cities, each city split would be no more than a 71–29% split. South San Francisco, too, would be reduced, in this case, 71 and 29%, going to Districts 1 and 29 to District 5. Of significance is that the map reduces the political orphans in the county to only 50,000. Likewise, the goals of the minority CVAP would be achieved in 3 of 5 districts, 52% in District 1, 48% in District 4, and 52% in District 5. District 4 would have the highest Hispanic CVAP available in all maps, including the status quo. The community uni map, again, would divide us into half. Once again, for the greater good, I would encourage that you adopt the equity map. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Matsumoto. Joanna Ingram, followed by Carolyn Sue.
Good morning, President Horsley, Honorable Board of Supervisors. My name is Joanna Cuevas Ingram. I'm a lawyer and Equal Justice Works Voting Rights Fellow at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, and I come on behalf of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and the Asian Law Caucus to applaud the board.
You don't really need to bend over. The mic will pick it up.
Good. Thanks.
You're on your back.
Thank you. So We have a prepared statement. We would like to applaud this board for convening the advisory committee and to thank the committee for their hard work over the last 6 months. We also urge this board to vote for the Community Unity Map 4 in its entirety. The line drawing process was a model of civic engagement. We commend the hiring of a professional demographer to help draft district lines, an outreach consultant to encourage civic engagement, a videographer and court reporter to ensure transparency, and interpreters to translate for non-English speaking residents of San Mateo County. This board and committee went to great lengths to foster civic participation. As a result of these efforts to encourage a truly community-oriented and base-driven process, the residents of San Mateo County, many for the first time, came out en masse to testify about their dynamic histories, the vibrancy of their unique communities, and the many policy concerns their neighborhoods share. Based on this input, draft maps were created, debated, and revised, and as a result of this democratic process, the committee recommended 3 maps that best protected the county's many diverse communities, prioritizing for the board the collectively drawn Community Unity Map. Particularly considering the legal struggles this county faced over its previous election system, we note that the 3 recommended maps meet this county's legal obligations under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act by ensuring that minorities, who make up over 50% of the county, will not have their votes diluted or otherwise diminished. Unlike the 3 recommended maps, many of the other proposed maps would have subjected the county to potential legal challenge. As in any redistricting process, good governance principles discourage elected officials from having the ultimate authority in determining their own electoral lines. For this reason, we urge the board to consider the Community Unity Map. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ingram. Carolyn Sue, followed by Robert Rubin.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Chu from Asian Law Caucus. I just wanted to add on to my colleagues' comments that the tally that was created by MIG is insufficient to capture the full depth of the discussions that happened over the last 10 meetings. I think it notes and indicates that, it almost implies that there were 0 comments made about any of the maps that have been proposed, and that's just absolutely not true. I think if you go back and look at the videos, and perhaps if you are going to tally these comments, you should go back to the videos and use that as the basis for these tallies. You'll find that a number of people, hundreds of people, as Doug Johnson had mentioned, came out to talk about their communities of interest, and that over the course of 10 meetings, the committee here has developed or has selected for you 3 maps that they feel best represent the communities of interest that have come before them. I also wanted to note that the current districts were not drawn with district elections in mind, and they also do not go through a similar process, public process, as these recommended maps have gone through. So I urge you to keep that in mind when you make a decision as to whether or not to vote on a map that has been recommended to you. In addition to that, I want to emphasize that a number of people have come out to participate in this process. Many of those people have not participated on a county level, and I think that in order to further encourage civic participation down the road, you should really keep in mind what the committee has recommended to you and vote for one of those 3 maps. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sue. Robert Rubin, followed by Chris. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to pronounce. Bruno Banyan. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Horsley and members of the board. I too would like to commend the work of the advisory committee. I think it was very important to have their views. As you all know, this came about as a result of a settlement of a lawsuit. I think it was important to have what I'll call a third party engaged in the process of at least making recommendations on the redistricting process so that it could be done in as fair and objective a way as possible. And I think that's what they did. I'm a little troubled by these statistics that have been offered today. I mean, look at the views of the people who have come before you today. I don't know who's going to come up following me, but so far you haven't heard anything about any map other than 2 of the 3 maps that have been recommended to you. And I think that speaks volumes. You heard about the digital divide. I think that's important too, that many people affected by this process do not have access to email and the like. So I think that it would really undermine the trust that you placed in the advisory committee to reject what I think are their very thoughtful and considered judgment in recommending three maps. I think any which of the three they would be satisfied with their adoption. I would not be concerned about the 5% deviation that was referred to earlier. The exactitude in local redistricting is not as nearly as precise as that required for federal redistricting, in which case congressional districts. Congressional districts require virtually no deviation at all from the median number, whereas for local redistricting, you're allowed a lot more latitude. In closing, I would simply like to say again that I think the faith and trust that you placed in the committee is important. I think they rewarded you with excellent, thoughtful work, and I'd urge that you abide by their recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Chris Punabanyan, followed by Joe Otedi.
Good morning, President Horsley and Honorable Board of Supervisors. My name is Chris Punongbayan, and I'm the co-director of Asian Americans Advancing Justice, which is the national legal civil rights affiliation. And over the past few years, we've worked very closely with the Mexican American Legal Defense Fund and the NAACP to promote the voting rights of members of the American public who have not had their rights fully recognized in our modern democracy. I wanted to offer support for the community unity map because it has the fewest city splits and it represents the broadest input of stakeholders in the county over the course of the 10 meetings. I want to just emphasize that the standard that we are setting in this redistricting process, because this is the first time that the committee has been put into place, is the standard by which all future redistricting processes will be measured. And we want to make sure that this has the most integrity and respects the work that has been done by the advisory committee. So I would strongly urge the board to adopt one of the three maps, but in particular, the community unity map. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Joseph Otedi, and followed by Kirsten Keith.
Honorable Supervisors, thank you for your time. My name is Joseph Otidi, a citizen, community leader, taxpayer, and elected school board trustee within San Mateo County. Moreover, I am one of the plaintiffs, along with lead plaintiff Ray Sartori, and the only elected official as part of a 2011 lawsuit with San Mateo County, which perpetuated the creation of county supervisor district elections and change of the county charter. Almost 3 years later, roughly $1 million spent in taxpayer monies for legal fees and consulting, and hundreds of hours of advisory committee work, we are here together for a chance to create voter equity. Previous to the lawsuit, San Mateo County was the last county of California's 58 counties to comply with Title II of Federal Voters' Rights Act and California Voters' Rights of 2001 to create voter equity and create county supervisory district elections. The lawsuit settlement with 4 Filipinos and 2 Latinos who had the courage to put their safety at risk created a process for San Mateo County residents' voices to be heard and create an advisory committee to suggest potential district lines. After the 10 town hall meetings and hundreds of hours of committee work, they have submitted their suggestion for supervisory review. Ignoring the committee's work and the study in support of community unity map would waste all the man hours and taxpayer monies to spend create opportunity for civil rights. Ignoring the recommendations will perpetuate the specter of voter civil rights violations and reinforce that Asian and Latino voices will be continued to be ignored by the Board of Supervisors. The committee's suggestions should not be ignored, nor its hard work put in vain. Albeit how district lines are drawn, we have a chance to move forward voter equity by taking the advisory committee's recommendations versus taking the council of personal agendas and political survival. It is time to set aside political personal agendas and to work together with Asian and Latino communities who have voiced their concerns in support of community unity map. And with their recommendation, together, we can continue to move forward and make San Mateo County a better place to live, work, and learn each day. Once again, my name is Joe Tyree, a proud Filipino American and community leader within Daly City and San Mateo County. God bless our community and our county. Thank you to Robert Rubin, Carolyn Sue, Joanna Cuevas Ingram, Chris Ponangbayan, and all our supporters.
Wow,
Thank
you
you.
got it all in. Great, Joe. Kirsten Keith, followed by Randy Schwartz.
Thank you. Good morning, President of the Board of Supervisors and to the other supervisors and staff. My name's Kirsten Keith, and I'm a council member from the City of Menlo Park, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the City of Menlo Park. I believe that you have a letter from our mayor that was submitted to you on October 7th, and there are also letters, I think, from Adina Levin that you probably have up there as well. And there are other letters coming in through the website. We are very concerned in Menlo Park about Menlo Park being divided, and we really don't want to see Menlo Park divided. We've already had a division recently. The congressional districts divided Menlo Park, and it was very controversial, and people came forward and said, we don't want to see this. Our community in Bellhaven, east of 101, already feels divided from Menlo Park, and we want to make sure that we continue to keep everybody in Menlo Park. And I think having a division anywhere, and the 3 maps that were forwarded to you, is not helpful or beneficial. So what we are asking is that currently, that we're entirely within a single supervisorial district, District 4. All 3 of your proposals divide us, and we really don't want to see that happening. We do want to thank the District Lines Advisory Committee very much for your hard work in looking at these district lines. I know it's not easy to do, but we do have serious concerns about the division of Menlo Park, and we would like to ask you to, when you look at this, to please don't divide Menlo Park. Keep us whole. We already have these divisions, and congressionally, we share, Sequoia Union School District and other districts, and the more divisions we have, the more difficult it makes it for people to access. So I would ask that you not split Menlo Park. Additionally, I don't think that the change in this district, the way that was drawn, it doesn't provide any major benefit to the ethnic breakdown of District 4. So please consider those issues when you look at this, and please don't divide Menlo Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Keith. Randy Schwartz, followed by Eric Rushames.
President Horsley, members of the Board of Supervisors, thank you. I'm Randy Schwartz. I'm the city manager for the town of Hillsborough. Last night, the city council for Hillsborough met, reviewed many of the maps, discussed this issue at length. I'm not here today to advocate for any one map, but I'm here to request that Hillsborough stay in the same district as the city of Burlingame. We've heard about the communities of interest, and we believe that there's a strong link between our 2 communities, more than 100 years of history between the 2. While we have a good working relationship with our cities to the south, and we appreciate that and we wish to continue to do that, there are just far more points of connection between Burlingame and Hillsborough. We would like to stay within the same district. A few examples that are listed in the letter from our mayor. We share one emergency operations center, and during emergencies and during trainings, staff, elected officials for both communities train together, work together, and staff the EOC together. We share the same zip code. We have combined fire departments. We together created Central County Fire Department and serves both of the communities. Our residents shop together. We play in the same youth sports leagues together. We attend the same recreational programs. Our common border is El Camino Real. We work with Caltrans. We work with the Grand Boulevard Project together. So with all of those different points of interest, Burlingame's emergency water supply is in Hillsborough that we connect. We have sewer systems together. So with all of those different points, we look at our 2 communities as communities of interest, and we respectfully request that they stay within the same district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Eric Rushames, followed by Steve Epstein.
Since I'm the first speaker to say good afternoon to the board, I'll try to be brief. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to thank Supervisor Tissier and Slocum and the committee, as others have said, but it's not just the 10 meetings. It was the 10 hours for each meeting that they spent preparing and wading through 31 maps and demographic detail. And for those of us that tried to do it, it was an enormous task, and I commend them for that. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District, and we are now all in one city. We were not always. And we went through the process of changing the boundaries, and it was very painful and very difficult. So I can appreciate the difficulties you have sitting up there to make the decision. I appreciate the committee which listened to the concerns of Pacifica residents about being split, and that option came off the table, and we very much appreciate that because of our community of interest is geographic as well as anything else, and for everybody who knows Pacifica, our geography is our joy, and it's also our nightmare. But there we are on the coast, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the time and effort that's gone into it, and urge you to continue to support an option that keeps Pacifica whole as in one district on the coast. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eric. Steve Epstein, followed by, well, actually Ray Bonaventura. I already talked about him, so it would be Leslie Nicholas.
Good afternoon, Supervisors Groom, Pine, Horsley, Tessier, and Slocum. As you may know, I'm the president of the Burlingame Hills Improvement Association, which represents the interests of 1,250 residents of unincorporated Burlingame Hills. You may not know that it is also a neighborhood in the city. There is also a neighborhood in the city of Burlingame called Burlingame Hills. This city neighborhood surrounds unincorporated Burlingame Hills on three sides. In fact, 80% of the boundary of unincorporated Burlingame Hills is adjacent to the city of Burlingame. We have many cases where one side of the street is in Burlingame Hills unincorporated, the other side of the street is in the city of Burlingame. Aside from sharing roads and topography, we share a sewer system, a water system, a school district, and perhaps more importantly, a sense of community. Clearly, we have common needs and interests, which, as you know, is a fundamental principle of redistricting. In addition, San Mateo LAFCO is coming out with a draft report today that will recommend that our community be annexed into the city of Burlingame. With all of these connections with Burlingame, it just doesn't make sense to be in a separate county district. It's a great irony that the so-called community unity map unnecessarily separates a very small portion of the Burlingame community from the rest of the Burlingame community. If community unity is truly your goal, then the map 4C is the most contrary to this goal for Burlingame Hills. Therefore, on behalf of all the residents of unincorporated Burlingame Hills, I urge you to vote against the current way that map 4C is drawn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Epstein. Leslie Nicholas, followed by Angela Larios.
Thank you, President Horsley and honorable supervisors, for this opportunity to address you. I'm Leisha Nicholas, Highlands Community Association Vice President. I'm speaking on behalf of County Service Area 1 and Highlands Community Association. We are a community of interest and we're unincorporated. So I think already all of our supervisors know our CSA 1 community well and can recognize that we greatly appreciate your request for residents' input in this process. We thank you for that. We had representatives at the committee meetings, and we've heard much concern from our area residents about being taken out of District 1, which is currently under Supervisor Pine. Almost 50 emails have been sent to the committee and Supervisor Pine requesting that our communities of County Service Area 1 remain as is in District 1 and under Supervisor Pine. There are many reasons that residents in our area are concerned. Here are just two. We have a much different district elections model now, changing from the at-large elections to now district elections, that we must assess the effects of the new model. It may be premature to modify district boundaries when we do not even know how our current districts will work in the new elections model. Number two, our CSA 1 communities are right now facing very complex decisions and seeking to resolve decades-long problems, or projects, not problems, with leadership from Supervisor Pine. We have the highest regard for all of our supervisors, of course, but we're right in the middle of this, and a change from Supervisor Pine's engagement and critical leadership at this time could risk adverse impacts and unacceptable outcomes for our communities. In conclusion, we strongly support leaving our San Mateo County Supervisorial District as it currently exists. Thank you.
Thank you. Argelio Larios, followed by Genevieve Japanda.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Argelia Larios, and I'm part of the community. I'm here because I want to support the community map. and also because I want to represent my son. My son was in the last meeting, who is 12 years old, and he wanted to be here, but he's in school right now. So it's hard to be here, but I really want you to know that I'm here because I want that you choose for the community unity map. And that's it, and I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Genevieve Jopanda, followed by Annie Loya.
Good afternoon, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Genevieve Japanda. I'm a founding member and current national co-chair of Kaya Filipino Americans for Progress and a resident of Daly City in support of the Community Unity Map. Last year, Kaya organized and collaborated with various organizations in the Bay Area to help register over 4,500 new voters at community events and immigration naturalization ceremonies. The board adopting the recommendation of the Redistricting Advisory Committee reflects a true statement when I tell a newly naturalized citizen that their voice and their vote matters. The drawing of the recommended lines took into consideration the feedback of your constituents. I respectfully ask that you adopt the Community Unity Map. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Genevieve. And Annie Loya? Yeah. So, the last time we saw you, we were voting you in as an alternate to the
I was going to include that in my speech.
Oh, well, you still can.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Annie Loya. And yes, the last time I was before this board was to advocate for my position and seat on the Supervisorial Advisory Committee, in which this board did move to create an alternate seat for myself. And the premise of that request is very much like the premise of the request today of diversity. And how do we think about diversity as a county? And I myself, although I have a Spanish surname, was still the closest person with my multi-ethnic background that was Black on the committee. And how do we think about that as we move forward in a county that will become more multi-ethnic, that will become more diversified? And what is the legacy that we want as a county to be able to leave behind? It's a theme, some of you may know, I work with Youth United for Community Action. Some of our young people sit on the Youth Commission now serving the county. And a theme that we work with them on is legacy. What is the legacy that they want to be able to build? And so now I bring that to you. What is the legacy that this county wants to be able to leave behind in a process that we now have before us, with a big decision and opportunity to diversify and move forward? Even with the names of Community Unity and Equity Map, there's a suggestion that perhaps the county does not feel unified or equitable. And the names of those maps are very significant in moving in a direction that the county wants to become more unified and equitable, and especially in some of these communities of interest, as we discussed, District 1, District 5, and District 4. And so I'm here today to advocate for either one of those maps, Community Unity Map, Equity Map, and not the precinct cleanup map, because it doesn't move us forward. It doesn't progress us. It keeps us the same. And this process was a hope for us to be able to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. And finally, Barbara Arrieta.
Good afternoon, and thank you for appointing me to the District Lines Advisory. It's been quite an education, and it's been a continuity of sorts since I was on the grand jury 5 years ago that originally investigated the issue of district versus county-wide, and we authored the advisory letter to go to district elections because we felt that we wanted to see more people get a better chance at opportunity at public office and to engage the citizenry. And the important thing is engaging citizenry. When you feel disenfranchised, you lose interest. And this is what you're hearing this morning. You're hearing interest from various people, but our county is by population, a little bit over 50% minority. By CVAP, which is citizen voting age population, a little bit under 50% minority. And I think that I'm a coastal resident. I feel sometimes that we have a minority voice by location and our population on the coast side. So I can identify what it's like to be third in line or not get what you want. Lucky if you get what you need at times. And I think that we need to move forward. I would love to see San Mateo County really address this issue. You've got some dynamite statistics and analysis. These three maps that were pro-offered, recommended to your board, did not come easily. They come with much deliberation and much thought. So I would say the first two maps are the important ones. It's up to you to make the delineation, but they are really the picture, I think, of what San Mateo County is going to be tomorrow.
And the first two are?
The first two are community unity and the equity map. And I'll have to say that the equity map has been changing so much, it just gets better and better and better.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate everybody for coming. It's obviously great interest, and I thought all your comments were really appropriate and helpful. So with that, comments from the board?
Mr. President, if I could just make one comment, because I think we need to make something clear. You know, there was some criticism about MIG's summary, and I think it sort of misses the point. The purpose for bringing this summary forward is to get it on the record, because those are the things that came to us on the website. So it's not to influence one way or the other, it's to let you know what kind of input we got on the website. And unfortunately, we didn't have that our last night, so it was important to get it on the record. So that, I just want to make that clear. That's really the purpose of that.
Do we have a motion for?
Well, just a minute, Mr. President. Let me.
Yes.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
I don't mean to put Mr. Church on the spot, or maybe the county lawyer, but maybe between the two of you, somebody could answer this. The three maps that were submitted: Community Unity 4, Nakamura 1G, and the Equity map. Did the registrar's office have a chance to look at those proposed boundary lines and do an analysis to see if there were any significant issues in terms of election administration that might arise?
Thank you, Supervisor Slocum and members of the board. We have examined the maps. There really is no issue from our standpoint in terms of precinct splits. Of course, we prefer to keep that to a minimum. The two maps that tend to do that are the Community Unity map and the Nakamura map. And that's strictly based on the data that has been provided by the consultant. And we can't really say with specificity until we redraw the precinct lines, because that's a whole new process that we will engage in. And as I say, our goal will be to keep the precinct splits to a minimum to avoid confusion and to avoid all mail ballot precincts. And let me call on David Tom, the elections manager. David, did you want to add anything?
Pretty much the same as what Mr. Church has said, is that until we actually work on the maps themselves, the preliminary numbers seem to point that for all three of them, we can probably work with it. We have some decisions to make once we run into specific splits, and the result could be more mail-bound precincts, but we certainly will try to avoid that.
Supervisor Tessier?
Can I just follow up on that? So if whatever map we pick, are you basically saying you'll take a hard look at it and you'll still have to tweak some of the precincts so we don't divide them up? So it's not that we're not honoring what's here in one of the maps potentially, but just to keep the precincts together, you would move some lines in that respect?
Correct. I mean, even in the current plan that we have that we're implementing for elections, there are already existing areas where we have to do splits. So again, until we actually map it, we really wouldn't know what the ultimate outcome would be.
And to the supervisors, that is something that the consultant can work with elections to do with respect to any of these maps, so that the ordinance that is introduced, would reflect that.
ahead.
I had another question. Just in trying to understand, I know that Mr. Bowman came up and explained the difference between the first unity map and the second unity map, and I'm looking at them, and I'm still struggling with where the differences are. Just for clarification, could I ask if he could come up and re-clarify that for me?
Sure. Mr. Bowman?
Supervisor, thank you, Chris Bowman. Unfortunately, the PDF map is not as defined as a Google map, but the differences are exactly 0.7% of the population of the county. We moved approximately 3,500 people from South San Francisco to District 5. And so the line that we have done are straight lines. So we went along Hillside, Sister Cities Boulevard. Then we went along El Camino. And actually, if you look at the precinct cleanup map, it's the same line as in the precinct cleanup map, that we go up El Camino. So the one precinct that right now is between Coma and El Camino goes into District 5, and then north of Hickey. And actually, we split a precinct there, but it's basically a straight line as well. The other two changes are between San Carlos and Redwood City along Edgewood Road. We move about 200 people in the unincorporated area east of Palomar Park. And we have a map of Palomar Park which shows that this is not part of that neighborhood. We got it from the Homeowners Association. And we put that into District 4. And then we moved basically south of Ralston, downtown Belmont, up to a line parallel to where the college is, Notre Dame, at the eastern end of Notre Dame. And it's about 1,900 people that we moved into District 4 from there. One correction from what the consultant said: we have not divided El Camino between two districts. We use specifically the railroad tracks or county road as the divider. We wanted to make sure that both sides of El Camino were in the same district, so that you don't have jurisdictional problems where two supervisors have to deal with something that one supervisor would be able to handle.
Okay, thank you. I just want some clarity. And then one other question on the map. Just, I'm trying to understand, and I don't know, these are difficult decisions because everybody wants to be whole. Everybody wants with it. Not for you, Chris.
Okay.
Thank you, though. On any of these maps, we're going to be dividing different cities. You'll take, I'll just go right down the road. You've got here, San Mateo, which is the second largest city in the county, is divided, yet the communities of interest are sort of divided there as well. I'm sort of curious, where's Doug? If you were to, just out of curiosity, whether it's the equity map or the community unity map, if you were to move a line up and keep San Mateo whole and take Hillsborough out and put it in one, are those population numbers, do we know if those are equitable?
Not directly. One thing that was discussed is things happen with Burlingame Hills and San Mateo Highlands, and you end up looking at numbers there. So in terms of District 1, you can make it work. You switch them back. What happens is District 2, you need to do something to balance those out. So it's not a direct swap, but it can be done. Essentially, when I look at these maps from the big picture, you really have two very different sections where changes are happening. One is kind of both ends of District 1 and the relationship to 5 and 2. Mm-hmm. The other is the Menlo Park area. Mm-hmm. So we could essentially keep, community unity or equity's version of Menlo Park and switch District 1 back to the way it is today. In a fairly straightforward manner, but it isn't a straight San Mateo for Hillsborough trade. Mm-hmm. You have to.
Well, I don't know if the committee's ready to actually do something today, but I'd sort of be curious to see what that would look like in the population. I've gotten several calls from San Mateo residents saying, you just divided up our community there, and we want to be whole. So have I gotten from other cities. But, for me to really make a final decision, I'd just like to see how something that, I consider this sort of amending the community unity, but not taking away the spirit of it. So I'm just sort of curious if that works, or if it could be drawn and we could look at it at a future meeting.
Yeah, or I can draw in a few minutes here as well.
Well, if that works too. I know we may be limited on time here for trying to squeak it all in today, but I'm certainly willing to listen to my colleagues as to what they would like to look at.
Supervisor Pine?
Okay. I appreciate everyone's attendance and input. So I had a couple comments, and I'm personally not prepared to kind of weigh in on the maps today, but I do have a couple comments that I'd like to make. In terms of the work of the advisory committee, it's very, essentially, in my view, the advisory committee brought back really one map, and there's kind of three variations of it. And, that's significant because the committee decided basically they really wanted to recommend essentially one map. I hear that message. I would have liked to have heard what the committee thought about some other maps because there are other maps and we don't have the committee's kind of formal view on any other maps, but we do have their recommendation for this one map with these variants. This is one of these situations where there is no right answer because of the fact that defining community of interest is a really broad and ambiguous term, and it depends on how where you sit. Some of the speakers talked about the importance of being objective, and that's our duty as elected officials. But it's everyone has a different perspective on this community interest, and there's no single right answer. Ultimately, when I make my decision, I'm going to consider any of the new maps, including there's another one been suggested today by Supervisor Tissier, and then there's a revised one by the equity map has been revised. I mean, what I have to do is look at the benefits of any of those new maps and weigh those against the detriments of those new maps, because there are benefits and detriments. In my own district, for example, I have the north part of my district arguing for the equity map, and I understand and appreciate Subsidy's long desire to have more of their city in one district. But on the other hand, I have other parts of my district who would be very uncomfortable with that outcome. So again, what is your perspective? What is your community of interest? And finally, too, I think it's important also to remember that this county has made a very, very big change in its voters electing by almost 60% to move to a district election system. So while we need to do the best, we need to reach the best possible outcome on this line drawing, but it is also important to remember that we've already made a monumental change, and a change which I've advocated for many years, which I think is in place. So those are my inputs, and I think because we have so many people advocating for essentially the existing map, that should be part of the consideration. I think that's called the precinct cleanup map. I mean, I think that should be considered by us. It lost by a 5-4 vote, but there are many people who are advocating for it. So I think it should be part of the mix.
Supervisor Groom?
Thank you, President Horsley. I want to begin by thanking the committee. I know
I do know what it's like to be on a citizens advisory committee and show up and be thoughtful and do your homework. And I thank those of you who are here and those who were unable to come because of their places of employment, more than likely. Also, because I sit in a seat that is up for re-election next year, I have not participated in this process. I have not commented on it. I have really not attended any meetings. I thought that would just be completely inappropriate. So when we received our report the other day, it was really the first time that I had seen the maps, and I have tried to study them, although I must say the maps we got on the big screen today are easier to read. But I do want to make one comment on the separation of the city of San Mateo. The most diverse part of the city of San Mateo has been separated from the existing District 2, and I'm a little lost on how that became a community of interest or a non-community of interest. I've been the proud representative of this district for 9 years on the City Council and 5 years here at the Board of Supervisors, and I'm just troubled that the northern part of San Mateo is moving to another district. Also, some of you may or may not know this, but I live right where the district is being moved. And so again, I don't see how that becomes a community of interest. So I'm a little troubled or puzzled by that map, and I hope perhaps our demographer can give me more of an explanation. The second thing that I was concerned about in this drawing of the map is that Coyote Point Park is moved out of District 2, and I think that there's the problem with that, as I view it, is that it'll now be the only district in the county that doesn't have a county park, and so there will be a lack of voice protecting parks, especially the Coyote, especially that. So I mean, those are the only comments I have about that map, but I'm think that the process that Supervisors Tissier and Supervisor Slocum and all of you participated in was the kind of dialogue and the kind of conversation that our county certainly should have and should continue to have. When the census comes out in 2020, we'll be right back at this. And so I hope that everyone stays tuned in and pays attention to the ever-changing demographics of San Mateo County. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Supervisor. Other comments, Supervisor
Yeah,
Slocum?
thank you, Mr. President. I didn't get a copy, first of all, I don't think I have a copy of Equity Map 3 in my packet.
He just handed it out.
Oh, you just handed it out. Okay, I just didn't take my copy.
You have to look at your papers.
All right. Well, I thought this was her paper. Thank you.
Chair.
And then Doug was saying earlier to Supervisor Tissier's point that he could draw the map in about 5 minutes. And I don't know, you've had 5 minutes. I don't know if you're done or not. But I wanted to make your life a little more complicated. And just ask sort of a theoretical question. We heard from many people today, and thank everybody for coming. The woman from the Highlands talked about that CSA Area 1. South San Francisco talked about a different split. Burlingame Hills spoke. And then Supervisor Tissier's suggestion about San Mateo. What does your instinct tell you about those 4 or 5 things that you've heard? And would it be possible in another 5 minutes to do sort of a hybrid map of those various points of view that we heard?
Sure. To the South San Francisco issue, it's actually pretty straightforward decision. The way that the equity map gets, I think it's 3/4 of South San Francisco together in one district, is by dividing San Bruno. And so they take, instead of District 5 going into South San Francisco for so much population, they continue along the west side of the freeway and take the northwestern corner of San Bruno in. So that's a pretty straightforward trade. We can do that in just about any maps. It's just a matter of is getting 3/4 of South San Francisco into District 1 an appropriate swap with the resulting division of San Bruno. From a demographer's perspective, from a numbers perspective, it works either way. It's just a question of what makes sense for the communities of interest and from a policymaking viewpoint. So that's pretty straightforward. On the other end, I actually did look at, if you put Hillsborough back into District 1 and unite San Mateo, then you really, District 1 comes up short. So you have to balance District 1, you're really taking Hillsborough, the Burlingame Hills, that unincorporated area that the gentleman spoke about, and the San Mateo Highlands, and that gets District 1 back to balance. The challenge is that San Mateo Highlands are coming out of District 3 in the community unity map, not out of District 1. So District 1 is then about 6% over, and that's where the split of Belmont comes back in. So that's the trade-off there, is we can get them back to where they are, but we need to also go back to where they are with Belmont. That's the challenge there. But it is certainly possible to do.
Well, Mr. President, I respect Supervisor Pine's perspective on wanting to do some more study. Personally, I'm in deference to his request, could, hear this again next week, but just want you to know that I'm prepared today to vote should we all think that's the best approach. I'd be curious about this, to see the detail of the hybrid map that Mr. Johnson just spoke about. So perhaps it's best to, put it off till the following week, and we have a chance to study those numbers, those lines.
Mr. President, I would also, since I asked to maybe make some changes and come back, I sort of feel like it's good to take a look at things. We may come back to right where we are today, but I think unless we take a look at some of these numbers, we're trying to keep, the tenor of what we have in the maps that were given to us, but we're also trying to assist some of the communities that feel like, that's great, you divided me, but you didn't divide yourselves. So it's, as I said before, it's a no-win situation. Someone's going to walk away unhappy, and somebody's going to walk away happy. I would like the hybrid that you talked about, where you make San Mateo whole, look at Burlingame, Highlands, maybe you have to move Belmont, whatever, there may be a few things, but it would be interesting to see a hybrid map that we could take a look at and just see what that does. I mean, I think we certainly have a good flavor of the comments from individuals, and we've also had a lot of comments from the feedback we've gotten in the emails. So I just think it would give us another opportunity of not rushing something that I think is really important to the community as a whole. So I would like to do that and maybe come back at the next meeting and see if it, works well for more than, as many people as possible.
Mr. Byers, do we need a motion to that effect, or should we just table it till the next board meeting?
Yeah, I think as long as you give staff clear direction, you can do by motion if you choose. You can just give direction. I mean, I think what I'm hearing I think what I'm hearing anyway is a desire for the board to take a little more time to come back on October 22nd with five maps with corresponding ordinances that would be, one of which you would choose that day to introduce, and then come back. Again, you have to come back. Ordinance takes two readings. So you have to come back. Introduction would be October 22nd, and then the adoption would be November 5th, which is the last date you would have to make a decision anyway, pursuant to the settlement agreement. But staff would come back with five maps and corresponding ordinances to be introduced. One would be the Community Unity 4 map. The second would be Nakamura 1G. Third would be a revised equity map, the one that was presented here today.
Equity 3.
Equity 3, I think it's called. The other is perhaps the fourth would be the precinct cleanup map, just so the board can now see that as a alternative. And the fifth is the map that Supervisor Tissier suggested Doug Johnson look at, and that is, I guess we'll call it an amended community unity map or a hybrid map.
Or an amended equity. I mean, either one of those is, because those are the two areas where San Mateo isn't whole. I'd like to maybe it's 6 maps, just tweak each one of them to see which best fits really the current population and the voting age population, and maybe tweak both those. I think what I'm hearing from most people is those seem to be the two maps that so far people feel good about, but if we can tweak them and either amend them to be a little different and see if the numbers work, that would be helpful.
Does that mean then that what I'm calling the hybrid map, which was taking into account the testimony of Highland, South City, Burlingame Hills, and Supervisor Tissier's comments, will that be one of the 6 maps? Yeah. Or not?
Is it your desire that it be a separate separate map than the one that?
No, if it could all be included, that's fine. But
Yeah. I mean, I just had to try to, I mean to clarify, I mean, I think this final map, we call the hybrid map, and maybe there are some variants, you know, but I think the instruction is it would keep San Mateo in District 2. And then that's going to force a lot of change in District 1 by definition. And then what happens in the north with District 5 and District 1, you know, there could be different types of changes there. I mean, it's, so I think you'd probably have to show some options. I mean, I think we've heard that you know that it would have San Mateo whole, and then that's going to affect everything north of it, and there'll be little variances. Is that how you could go about it?
Before you do that, I'm not sure like you can encapsulate all of our thoughts. I hope you can.
Yeah.
I just want to make one comment myself about Supervisor Groom. We were actually, the two of us were involved in the initial parts of this issue, and so we both essentially stayed out of it as well because we're both coming up for re-election. I just want to make, from my perspective, two things. First of all, I wanted to make sure that the entire coast stayed whole and consistent. And my reasoning is that we have an overlap of having to deal with the Coastal Commission on a variety of issues, and it just seems to make sense to that. But I also do have some concern of having all or so many of the unincorporated communities being in one district. You know, I just think that it's having just one voice on a 5-member panel is problematic. But in any case, those are my only thoughts about the issue.
As to one quick comment as to other options, what do we call it, a hybrid 1, hybrid 2, or, you know, I think the idea is to capture a lot of the sentiments we heard here today. And it might be worth hearing from Doug, to make sure Doug understands kind of what he needs to do in terms of next steps, because he's the one that is the mapper. So.
Well, let me start with one request of, just to clarify in terms of list of maps, the Nakamura 1G plan was the third ranked recommendation of the committee. They ranked them. I was keeping track today, and no one today mentioned it as a preferred map. I don't know if you want to keep that in the mix, or we can simplify what we have to get done for the next meeting, if that's.
No, but he's made calls today, and he has other maps that he's willing to submit, so.
He did, I will note, he did send a letter yesterday with his new maps. Just his one request was that you not adopt a map today. He didn't recommend anything. So if you'd like me to keep that in the tables and in the comparisons, I'm happy to. If you're comfortable with dropping that,
I think that's the sentiment. I think we're comfortable dropping Nakamura.
Although I think it probably gets replaced by this hybrid map in that, I mean, Nakamura, in some respect, I mean, Nakamura does, I'm thinking of the Nakamura before that. So, yeah, Nakamura's prior map, was that 1D? I can't quite recall the number. No, that did, well, actually, I shouldn't cite back to that. So, too many maps, I apologize.
Yeah, I did, by the way, check, and not counting the ones he sent in yesterday, he sent in 12 maps. Just get to the precise number.
I would be willing to, you know, we haven't really addressed it because really we haven't seen, you know, I've seen three maps that people have talked about. One is, really 4, the equity map, the unity map, the precinct cleanup, and leave it as it is. And now we're talking about kind of tweaking a little bit of, you know, trying to move the second largest city as a whole and keeping those communities of interest. And how does that affect, and I would say do maybe 2 hybrids, how does that affect the equity 3 map, and how does that affect the community unity map? And you know, because that way there's going to be, these are almost identical in some respects, but they have just some other tweaks. So if we get a hybrid on each of those, that might help us understand.
Sure, and actually the other question I was going to have, and I think you just answered, is for the hybrid map, do you have a preference for the down in Menlo Park, kind of the community unity version, or the equity version, or it sounds like you like to see both?
I'd like to see both.
Well, wait a second. Didn't the representative Kirsten Keith was here just speaking about not splitting Menlo Park?
Yes.
The precinct cleanup is coming back.
Oh, the precinct cleanup is coming back. Okay.
I thought also that Mayor Keith said that they really wanted to keep Bellhaven
Right.
is part of their city because they're working so hard to do unification there in Menlo Park, and to split it would then just
Right.
put a halt to some of that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
Just
yes.
one point of clarification, Mr. President.
Yes.
So, Doug, you know, I just want to reiterate this so that we're all on the same page. It sounds like what you'll be developing is certainly we have the Equity 3 map, the Community Unity 4 map, and my understanding is that the board would like us to, Doug, to work with elections to make sure that the precincts are cleaned up on those.
That, I think that would be helpful as well.
And then we had the precinct cleanup map and the hybrid map that Supervisor Tissier was talking about, which was essentially community unity, but shifting San Mateo back into District 2. And then the last hybrid map, if you will, which was essentially still shifting San Mateo back into District 2, talked about some changes up in South City. And is that essentially then a hybrid to the equity map?
Supervisor Pine, did you?
No, I mean, I think it's, I mean, San Bruno, under the equity map, yeah, San Bruno is a split city. And they weren't here today, but they previously registered concern about that. I mean, it's okay, you know, we should bring that map forward, but I don't think it should be the only map that deals with the North County issue.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that's the direction you were going. That
So it sounds like the hybrid map would be a different split up in South City, but not necessarily what is in the equity map.
Well, I think what I'm saying is you're going to have to look at the numbers. If you can do the equity map without changing the north, that's fine. If you know, the only way we're going to know to compare is to see if you add San Mateo to be whole, what does it do? Do you have to do, if you do something north or you do something south? There may be a couple versions you bring back because this will affect this and this will affect that. So it might not be just one or two options. It might be if we push this north, this goes this way. So it might not be as clear cut, but it would be helpful to get a little bit of that to see if maybe we're just going too far afield of these couple maps, but maybe not.
I think I'll obviously confirm this, but I think that the kind of equity shift where you divide San Bruno and put more of South San Francisco into one, I think that doesn't have what we term ripples. I think it's entirely contained. So I'll confirm this and come back to you with it, but I think that's something that can be done essentially in any plan. So I don't have to have, you know, equity, hybrid, and all that with it, showing that change. I think it could even be done in the precinct cleanup map. So essentially, I don't think I'll have to prepare whole new sets of maps. I can just say, you can put this in or not put it in, whichever way you want to go. But I'll confirm that, and hopefully it'll be pretty clear.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. I think we're pretty clear then.
Okay.
Clear? Or as clear as a bell, huh?
No further comments.
Or as clear as mud.
We have our marching orders. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I do want to thank everyone for coming. I thought it was really helpful, and we now have board members' reports. So thanks very much for coming. And now time for board members' reports. Supervisor Groom?
No report, Mr. President.
No report.
Supervisor Slocum?
No report.
Report is that I understand it's someone's birthday on this board today, and I'm not sure who that would be, but it might be the president. So we might want to say happy birthday to Dawn.
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday, Dawn.
Oh, boy.
For sure. I think
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I just have I just have one to adjourn in memory of Sylvan Human. Sylvan, who was born in San Francisco, died actually on October 2nd this year. Long and full life. He was a Renaissance man, diverse interests ranging from sailing to flying to astronomy to making things of all kinds of technology. Among his many accomplishments, he started the Northern California chapter of Business Executives Move for Vietnam Peace, and he was in the Sheriff's Air Squadron for a number of years. He was a real charitable man, leaves behind a very loving and large family.
I have one more.
So-
I'm sorry, Mr. I got
sorry.
carried away with your birthday. But I do have two other
Supervisor.
announcements besides that. Is this, on Thursday, October 17th, there'll be another older driver safety seminar at the San Mateo Senior Center. So any of you that are interested, please call my office at 363-4572 to sign up. And just a reminder once again that Seniors on the Move conference will be on the 26th annual one will be on Monday, November 4th at the San Mateo County Event Center. And registration forms have been distributed, but if there's someone that hasn't received one, feel free to call myself at my office, 360-4572, or Congresswoman Spears' office, and we'll mail them to you. Thank you.
And our final speaker is Martin Fox.
Thank you for your patience and your attention. I will be brief. The Stanford School of Medicine is holding a forum entitled Serious Mental Illness, How Can We Promote Public Health and Safety? With Los Angeles County Sheriff Lee Baca, University of Chicago Crime Lab, Dr. Harold Pollack, Dr. Laura Roberts, and Dr. Keith Humphreys at 291 Campus Drive. This coming Thursday, October 10th from 11:30 to 1:20 p.m. It is free and open to the public. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce and others are sponsoring a Hiring Our Heroes job fair at the Hyatt Hotel in Burlingame on Thursday, October 10th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Cora is holding its first annual Domestic Violence Awareness Month luncheon at the Marriott Hotel in Burlingame on Thursday, October 17th. The Alameda County Health Services Director attended the Mental Health Association's Laura's Law presentation in Oakland last Wednesday, and he is also expected to attend the Alameda County Board of Supervisors Health Committee meeting, which will consider the recommendation of the chief of Alameda County's Health Services Agency to implement a Laura's Law pilot project during its meeting on Monday, October 28th in Oakland. The National Liberty Ship Memorial Organization is holding the first annual military ration veterans cook-off aboard the SS Jeremiah O'Brien in San Francisco on Sunday, November 10th, the day before Veterans Day, from 1,100 hours to 1,300 hours. Thank you.
There are no closed session items, and we will come back at 1:30 for Presidential of Service Awards. And I think there's also a Day of Remembrance on the outside. So we're going to go outside to the Day of Remembrance. It's coming back here? Oh, okay.